I wrote Less Than Jake. And it just started this back and forth where I do a drawing and Chris said, hey, that was cool. I cut it out and I clear taped it to my guitar. And the next time I saw them, sure enough, my artwork was on my favorite band's guitar.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, feel free to support the podcast if you've been listening for a long time, like over the 3.5 years this thing's been around, by supporting me on the Patreon page, patreon.com/thiswasthescene. It's only $1 a month, and you're the best. And thank you to everyone who has been a Patreon member and is still a Patreon member. You guys are the greatest, and I appreciate you. Peter Wonsowski is the dude who created the spiky blonde punk kid, aka the Evolution Kid, aka the Evo Kid, who represented Less Than Jake in the late 90s, and resides as a tattoo on many people's bodies to this day, because tattoos are a little bit hard to get rid of. He's done artwork for Less Than Jake, obviously, The Impossibles, Pinball Records, Shower with Goats, Sir Paul McCartney, the Bill Murray documentary, and a shit ton of others. I tried to get him on the podcast a while back, but due to COVID being a bitch, it took a little bit of a while. Luckily, he finally gave in, and we had a super solid conversation. I really love this interview, and this is what we talk about. Using his gut for his design projects, creating the artwork for the Bill Murray documentary, becoming friends with the NJ Joystick dudes, designing the artwork for Less Than Jake's latest album, Silver Lining, his design process that basically blows my fucking mind, our thoughts on NFTs, the Broadways and Tuesdays when they played in Jersey, designing for Paul McCartney, the artwork for Greased, Supermarket All-Stars, creating artwork for The Impossibles, Shower with Goats CD release show, designing Plow United's artwork for 3, Easter eggs in his artwork, and a ton more. That's a long fucking list, but yeah, we have a lot of things we talk about. Check out his work at peterwonsowski.myportfolio.com for concept, content, graphic design, illustration, packaging, production, merchandising, marketing, print, digital, plus social media campaigns with enthusiasm to meet all deadlines. I just stole all that from his LinkedIn. So he does all that stuff, and his artwork is fucking awesome. And you should go check it out. Even if you don't need to hire him, just go to his website, and the link's in the show notes. So just click on it, go check it out. It's great. Real quick, in the beginning, I fuck up and say Peapack at one point, which a lot of Jersey people are probably losing their minds because it sounds like I didn't correct it, but I do correct it later. So I figured I'd tell you now before you lose your shit. One last thing, I have This Was The Scene stickers that just got made. They're 2 for $2, so you can just PayPal thiswasthescene@gmail.com, or you can Venmo _Mike Doyle, and I will send you them. I've got about 16 2-packs left, so you better hurry up before they are gone. They're about 3 inches tall by like 1.5 inches wide, so they're small enough where it's not going to be super intrusive on your water bottle or your computer or your kid's head. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock fucking nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. I legit stopped taking photos like of myself as I've gotten older. Like, Jesus Christ, man. I was like, I need to really stop drinking so much beer because it is just not working out with my face and my chin in these photos.
Every time I look down.
Oh yeah, every photo has to be holding. My buddy John Price, who listens to this, he taught me this trick where it was like 10 years ago. We were taking a photo, and he like grabbed my hand and my camera and lifted it up in the air. He's like, always shoot down. And I thought, God damn, that's genius. And so from then on, I've always made sure that people always point the camera down from a very high height. But yeah, man, I'm excited for this, dude. How long ago did I ask you? It was like, I feel like it was August of last year.
Yeah, I mean, nothing. I could probably look on the Gmail, but it feels like a year in a way. And thanks for remembering, and thanks for reaching out. First of all, I mean, I just take it as a total compliment that you would even want to talk to me. I'm very kind of
Hell
grateful
yeah.
and humble about getting to do it. But as I listen to your show, I can't tell you how many times I'm just like, whether it's Joystick or Monkey or The Impossibles or Less Than Jake, obviously, and a whole lot of other ones where I'm just even stories about, Broadway's Tuesday show with you guys. And I was like, I was there. So there's
Wow.
some of that, but also I think, and I don't want to make like my past year and a half is any worse than the world's past year and a half, but I was not in any good place to speak on anything, So you were just super nice to reach out and super nice to be patient for me. Plus, again, not to be too self-deprecating, but I'm always of the mind of, some people would be like, would you ever teach an art class? And I just feel like I've got nothing to say.
See, that's
So,
the thing. I think I think everyone feels that way,
mm,
and like so one thing I love about these interviews because I'd say a majority of people start off and they're either really nervous or they're like, I have nothing to say, and I'm like, I wouldn't be talking to anybody if they didn't have anything to say. Like I'm always just so fascinated, even in the smallest minute to the grandest of stories. Like just for me, I just love dissecting someone's life and just how interesting it is to me. Especially with the scene is obviously the focus, and it's even more interesting to me in that aspect. But there's always like these tiny things that go outside of the scene where, like with you and art, it's so fascinating to me because I've been a graphic designer for so long, and I see
right.
shit that you do, and then like Jason Link, who I just interviewed, his interviews before yours, and you guys are so fucking good at design, and I just look at that like there's a point where I realize how far I can go with my design, where I'm like, you know what, I don't feel like I want to learn anymore, but some people just have this natural thing when they learn the technical side and then they learn the fundamentals of it, and it just comes together so well, and then like they have their own way of seeing something, and your style is so dope. And if I'm on your like website now, and I didn't realize how broad your ability is. It's
Thank you so much. And
yeah.
that's really nice to hear and validating. And I mean validating because I've always worried, especially when you sort of go through the traditional routes. Man, I wish I could pick apart your whole sentence. There's so much I want to respond to, but that the versatility is because I'm interested in a million things. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to learn a million things, but that, say, I went to art school in Philly, and every professor before you graduate and start pounding pavements, like, you got to wrangle it in, Wonsowski, and pick one thing that you like to do and just do that 100 times over. And there I was, just, you don't tell me what to do. But reality was, I just was like, but I like this, and I like cartooning, and I like animation, and I like design, and I'm like that with music. People are like, what kind of music are you into? And I hate that canned responsive. I just love
I
I
hate
could
that.
find, I know, but I could find any song in any genre of music and just really just do a deep dive into that time or place. So art wise, I don't know if I've ever sat there and thought consciously, I want to learn this. I've always felt a couple parts. One, there's this thing that I want to do. So I'm going to just coincidentally grow in leaps and bounds. I could read all the books on this program or watch tutorials on this, but until I sit down, even when I do sit down, I'm like, I just watched a whole hour of tutorials and I still don't know how to start this. So I really just got to dive in. And then, of course, and maybe I don't know if this is like this for you, but there's no point in me having a vision. I've just kind of got to go on this journey because it never turns out how I want it to turn out.
Right.
Whatever I set out to do and learn and accomplish, it's way off the mark. But I have to be okay to say, don't overwork it, let it go, just hit stop, sleep on it before you send it out,
Yeah.
and just take a look at it. But I always think about that whole line about, write the book you want to read, but I never feel like I make that kind of art. I think something that takes the pressure off, and maybe this isn't the right time to respond to this, is that I'm not doing like my art for me all the time. I've sort of made this decision to share what I guess you call commercial art. I'm really doing trying to interpret somebody else's passion project with my own passion. So I'm not just trying to force my style on something. So I will circle this back to the versatility variety thing, because I do love the spice of life. So I feel like I'm never going to force my style on anybody. I've got my brain and my feelings and opinions and my techniques and this, that, or the other. But if I think the best solution for you is just the words, the logo, and a photo, then I'm not going to draw anything. And if I feel the best thing is to do some elaborate Dr. Seuss level, Where's Waldo convoluted punk rock scene, then that's what we're going to do. But it's collaborative.
Well, that's the thing though. You're taking I think even when you talked about music, I've noticed this about, I think I'm very self-aware and I've gotten more of that over the years just because of life just doing what it does. And the positive and the negative thing really make you, if you're really good at it, you do a lot of self-reflection and you look back and think, all right, like this is really good. What is it about me that I like about this? Or if this is like I'm really bad at this or I have a really bad temper or why is that? And you
Mm.
become, it kind of goes to a core of how you just view things and how you put shit out there. And I think that, like, even the way you choose music, right? Let's say it's country or punk rock or metal or whatever the hell it is, rap. And there's always like a thing though when I ask someone about like what do they like about music, and some people are like, well, it just makes me like I like a good hook, right? Or I like a good lyric, like Chris from Lanemeyer. He's
Yeah.
all about lyrics. I mean, he is a poet. He's like he grew up, he started as a poet when he was a kid, and he just a really good lyricist. So he always looks for a great line, and then the melody kind of comes second. For me, I just bought what the hell is her name? I'm looking at the record right now. Casey Musgraves.
Yeah, sure.
And holy
You
shit.
could do you could do worse in modern country.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I hate country. I typically don't like it, but there's something about her record that just stands out to me. But so anyway, my point is that everyone has their own thing, and I think that when they expand out and like you look at your artwork and all the bands and everything you've worked for, it might seem super diverse, but there's always that core of it of just how you see it, and you kind of just go with that gut. And even like you said before, you know, what would you have to give back if you're teaching a drawing class? It's like just have your vision. And the problem I think with people is that they try to like what's the word? Copy or duplicate what someone else is doing, and that's not what. Then you just get like I'm looking at the window at my town, and they're just making the same buildings. And you're like, no one even
Yeah.
is given their own style of this shit anymore. So it's if you just run with your style, that's what people are paying for.
Yeah, and it's funny because I always think of maybe they're paying for my brain and my solutions. You know,
Well, that
there's
too.
especially as we could probably talk for ages about, just the life of being a freelance entity
Yeah.
and how difficult it is to have the money conversation, for instance, because, you're really just trying to pay your phone bill, but you still have to explain to some people about, well, I put 100,000 hours on this and, it's my solution. Or one record label, I turned in something that I was really proud of, and they put it out, and then later they saw my website and they were like, I didn't know you could draw. Why'd you give us this record cover if you could draw like this? And I was like, it's just I don't even know how to respond. I'm kind of laughing about it, but it was a little insulting. But it's funny about, like, for instance, you talk about what attracts you to art, music, etc. And no matter how much I think about and self-reflect and try to verbalize, it always comes down to these intangible, like what resonates with me, and I don't even know why, but I'm going to go with it. Working with bands, so it's funny about your friend and bandmate who focuses on lyrics. Where I was talking about in the case of hip hop, I could listen to instrumental hip hop all day long, if the production's good. So I know I'm missing out on a lot of good lyrics and MCs, but I default to instrumental music, mostly because I resent anybody telling me what to think. Whether it's like Bob Dylan or Casey Musgraves or whatever. I always feel
Interesting.
like, words are making me think thoughts, and I want to think my own thoughts. But at least music, when you are making music, now I'm feeling a feeling. And in the case of some people, if you write a good song, well, now you're feeling a thought. And so, what I'm trying to work with bands and collaborate with them, and I really feel like I'm working with them. I'm asking for lyrics. I'm asking for their story. And what do you like? What do you hate? I want to do this thing together that does your passion project justice. So I'm looking at words. I'm listening to music, but I'm still trying to put it all through this meat grinder and give them something that represents it, that makes you feel thoughts or think feelings. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, you can look at something. There's album covers where you look at it and you hear the album and you're like, holy shit, this visualized what I'm hearing.
It's funny too because I really appreciate. Well, how about for you? Do you think you're a good judge of your portfolio when it comes time to really narrow it down and put something up that represents you? Are you a good judge of yourself, or when you curate songs for a set list, etc.?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you do.
yeah, like I used to love doing mixtapes because I remember well, I watched High Fidelity so many times, and when he's talking about how to curate a great mixtape, it's 100% right. You come in hard, and then you kind of like keep it going for one, two, and three. You slow it down, you keep it a little level, you peak it a little bit, maybe go like a nice, like slow, like just super big song, and you end it with a fucking bang. And
Oh yeah,
I think like that's what a portfolio is too. I think like that law kind of goes across, but I just kind of stopped once I stopped trying to match what other people do, and I add my own sarcasm, and if I laugh at it or if I think that it's funny or there's like an emotion I'm trying to come across, or even if it's different. Like
yeah,
when I showcase my animation shit, I always throw like super random hilarious shit on top of it, or like just super awesome hip hop shit that I find on like YouTube audio as my teaser videos.
yeah.
And I think that it always represents me. And so I just let go, and I was like, as long as when this thing's done I want to watch it over and over again, then I did it.
That's definitely a really good way to judge yourself. And I feel sometimes self-conscious because I'm too connected to the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that I poured into every decision. So when I look at some of the work I've done, and now it's time to take 100 pieces and narrow it down to 10 because I know that I'm only as good as my worst piece, right?
Yeah.
But I am always shocked to find out that things that I love, let's just say on Instagram, there was this year where I spent, okay, I'm not going to be a dinosaur. I'm going to get on Instagram. I'm going to stop yelling at the kids, and I'm going to do hashtags and this, that. And the things that I was so excited about to share just bombed. And I know everybody has gone through this. And then
Oh
things
yeah.
that I just thought were the ugliest, weakest, lamest things would go wildly successful. And I just give up. And sometimes I just go, man, I'm just going to just dump it all out there and let the world sort through it. But I always feel like I'm not a good judge because you can never, I firmly believe in all kinds of aspects of life. I shouldn't say firmly, but you just can never predict the impact. You just can't.
Well, that's like kind of I mean, that's like the whole fun about this shit, right? And it's when people let go and just kind of, I think that causes anxiety is because people are expecting an outcome. And once you kind of just stop caring, that's when it becomes
Mm,
more fun.
that's interesting because I'm sort of on this weird cusp where I had done work for a documentary. I loved working on it with a good friend, Tommy Avalone, called The Bill Murray Stories. And
I was gonna ask you about that.
um,
Yeah, good. Go on. I
oh,
want to hear about this.
well,
Yeah.
well, I was just going to say that one of the cruxes of the film is this, Zen, lesson about, it just doesn't matter, which normally, if you say it in a punk rock voice, it's very defeatist, right? And there's a lot of
It's
times in the
true.
last year where I've really caught myself saying in the negative way, what's the point? None of this matters. But I feel like I'm on the cusp of this positive side of nothing matters, let's just do it. And there's no point to life but to live it. So, like eat that peach and just express yourself and be kind and all that good stuff. But I'm not like totally there yet.
But that's the whole point, though. It's like I think it's the punk rock attitude was, what's the point? Let's just go out and just be what we want to be, and that's why. When you live that way, like then you feel free. Like Bill Murray is a great example, and I'm gonna talk definitely. I'm gonna jump back to when you grew up in Jersey and like got in the whole
Sure.
scene stuff. But I think all this is relevant. Like Bill Murray, the thing I love about him is that he is so fucking great, and but he even the whole stories about him showing up and just taking people on a night out of the town and say no one's gonna remember this. It's
Yeah.
like talk about a guy who just has fun. And I think the problem is that people go, yeah, well, he's Bill Murray and he has money, can do that. And you're like, well, that's the problem. And that's why you're going to be stuck from now until you die, is because you think that you need all that shit to just make your own fun things up.
Oh,
And
I
then,
couldn't agree more.
yeah, and then I'll talk to people sometimes and they'll make comments or I'll read shit on Instagram like, well, it must be nice, or, oh, but I've got this and this. You're going, man, that that's the problem right there is when you start putting up your own walls. Like you're the one who said that, No one else said that to you, you know? And Bill Murray was just kind of like, yeah, sure, he is talented and he's in these movies and he is like he has a shit ton of money, so he can do those things. Like I sometimes look at my life and go like, all right, well, how can I live like that without needing $1 million? Like, how could I go do that shit without that? And I'm pretty sure I could figure it out if I really wanted to.
Yeah, and I just have friends who, and it depends what your definition is. I mean, Bill Murray, he just sort of his I can do whatever I want isn't just because he's got money and fame or whatever. It's really just because he's really hungry for experience. I mean, there's this the story of him driving a cab so the cab he could practice saxophone in the back, and I love that one. And that's got nothing to do with
So
anything like
great.
skydiving or something illegal, you know. So I really and I have friends that are just like that. I don't know what they do to remove all excuses, like what you call walls. But you know, a friend of mine will just call and be, "Yeah, you want to go see Body Count 2 states away on a work night?" You know, and you're like, "Well, yeah, but you know, and I hem and I haw and all this stuff." But it's true. There's no reason. And one of the very kind of punk rock knee jerk reactions I have, and I'm shocked that I have this happen more as an adult than I ever did as a kid, is like peers, friends, coworkers, other adults. They'll still say something to me along the lines of, you know, you can't do that,
Oh my
or
God, I
well,
hate
or
that.
this one, well, everyone else, dot, dot, dot. And I just immediately, it's like, you know, I just get so enraged. Like, how dare you tell anybody that you can't do blankety blank blank blank?
Because
So
they
it just,
can't.
I,
Because
well,
they
yeah, but that,
can't.
and I'm me, and I don't mean I'm me. I'm better than anybody because absolutely nobody's better than anybody for any reason. But I mean, I'm me, and my path to my success or fulfillment or however I define whatever I'm going towards is unique to me. I've watched
Hmm.
so many music documentaries because A, I think music tends to inspire me more than art, for better for worse. And I'm kind of I'm looking at everybody's unique path to their own success because it is unique to every individual. And there's also this wild X factor and timing and all kinds of things you just couldn't put into any equation why some people make it and some people don't. But I know that I, as say a freelance artist, for instance, I have read every book. I've listened to podcasts. I've been part of communities. I basically I've done what they told me everybody does consistently with, and I mean this, 0% return. The only time I do work with other people is 100% word of mouth, and I'll call it repeat business, but by just putting myself out there and being myself. And I feel that's the ultimate compliment when somebody sees this record and goes, "Hey, who did your cover?" And they go, "Oh, this kid, you know, Peter Wonsowski from Basking Ridge." Like, "Oh, well, you know, let me call him," kind of thing. And hopefully it was a positive experience, and then somebody else passes your word along, and that's carried me over into years. And this is all hindsight, by the way. But yeah, this thought that you got to do it like this because everyone else is just a huge
But it's
red
safe though.
flag for
You know
me.
why? You know why people do that though? They do it because it's already the path has already been carved out and they can see it clearly. And they're like, "Well, I can see it. It's there, so it's proven that you can just go in that direction." That you're like,
Yeah,
and then, you know, the path that you want to go on, it's just an open field or it's nothing and there's no straight line, there's no line. And you're going, "Well, I want to I have a shovel, I want to start digging." They're like, "Yeah, but look at the paved road right there.
yeah,
It's already set. You can just get in your car and drive that or walk it." And you're going, "Yeah, but that's too easy. I want to actually put in the labor and build my own shit." And they're like, "Well, that sounds dumb. I can't do that." And you're like, "There you go. Get the fuck out of my way. Get fucked."
yeah. That's how I feel, and I don't want to rag on anybody else for doing what they think is right for them, whatever that's safe. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not thumbing my nose at them for that. But I am shocked when they say, I don't know, I just always feel like, don't tell me what I can't do. That's silly.
Oh, I love that, dude. I'm so there. I mean, yeah, but so this kind of ties into there was something I thought about. Yeah, there's certain bands I've talked to where James from Slow Gherkin listened to the Less Than Jake episode and he emailed me. Or no, when I interviewed him, he's like, "You know, you asked Chris, were they good? Did they think they were good enough to be having all those people come to their shows?"
Wow.
And Chris was kind of like, I think he was kind of like, "Oh, I didn't ever thought about that." And he just didn't even he never thought about it. He was just go 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 go. But they were so fucking good. And I think that the reason that some people, I think everyone has that a thing in them or musically or artistically or create whatever the hell it is, and they have that one thing that's they're so good at, and they just kick ass so much, so they don't need to market, and people just come to them because they put it out there. But I think other people, they want to go in that direction, and I think that might be the reason why they're stuck, is because that thing that they have isn't the actual thing they're doing. And once they
It's
let go and start doing the other thing casually, then it blows up, like Fun, right? That band Fun.
oh yeah.
All their other bands were good, but once they just said, oh, let's fuck it, let's do this, then that thing becomes, it blows into the stratosphere, and you're going, that's the thing you should have been doing, but you also had to do that other shit, and then you had to finally let go, and then you had to finally go with the what feels easy, and they did, and then it was like, boom.
Yeah, there's man, once again, I feel like I want to just like break off into five responses to everything you're talking about. For one, I think, yeah, nobody knows what that X factor is. And like you said before, if you try to emulate it and not be yourself, you could be inspired by a million sources, but you still got to express yourself individually. And that's pretty punk rock. And I think as far as creating the party, I mean, I think the scene is always kind of hungry for finding something. I don't want to ramble and I don't want to forget everything you've said. Two things then. One is this thought that once you start pandering to what people want, then you're not making something great. So you did this great thing, everybody wants you to repeat it. So I'm sure you've also got examples. I could think of five bands just immediately where I love them for this thing intangibly that made them special, but they grew as artists do, and they wanted to start doing something different. And they put out that follow-up record, and I'm like, it's not you, it's me. I've changed, you've changed, band. I'm just not into you, band. So darned if you do, darned if you don't, and everybody grows in different directions, and I don't follow them. But with someone like Less Than Jake, I mean, one, I am biased. I have so much sincere love for them. But what's amazing is, and something nobody wants to talk about, like if nobody ever wants, whether it's like, I don't know, relationships or being, pursuing art and music because you're compelled to, is just the amount of work. Everybody wants it to be this magic instant thing, especially this generation. They just think it's, plug in and you're famous. But Less Than Jake was doing at least, and they can correct me, but like 300 shows a year. I mean, you want to talk about putting yourself out there, and to a point we could talk about later is you slowly find your people, you find your community, and you find your fans, and suddenly they're singing along. Again, if you're a positive word of mouth, and suddenly you keep growing, and now you're sharing more experiences with more people, and it just kind of grows and grows and grows. But I think there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into, it's very blue collar. And I think something that happened to me in the last year was, people younger than me at this tech startup are really talking about, well, your career, you might want to do this, that, or the other. And I was like, wow, I'm really not a thinking career. I'm just thinking about drawing until my arthritic hands have to have paintbrushes taped to them, and no retirement, no insurance, just basically dying, and that'll be that, and that
Yeah.
was a life well spent. So, as a creative person, so I've never thought about a career or my voice, or I certainly tons of things that I want to do, but it's always like I feel very blue collar about it, and how lucky I am if I'm not wasting time and I'm not wasting talent. I just, if I had the world's worst business model, I just want to do good work with great people. And I'm not going to beat myself up if I didn't dream about working for this client when I was a young punk, but I'm just going to do as much work as I can with good people. And I'm just going to keep showing up every day and just trying to like do it. And now I've got jobs and not really worried about a career.
Let me ask you about this then. Okay, this kind of ties back into when you started down this path, because you were like what, and I'm just gonna just you say yes, and I'm gonna go backwards. Don't dive into it, but like you were what, you said you were 14 when you did the artwork for Less Than Jake?
Yeah, it's nuts. Maybe 15.
Okay, and that was Greased, right?
Yeah, well, so it's funny, just like maybe I get the impression from some of your episodes that before you interview a band, you'll kind of go through the NJPP discography, and archive and kind of bone up. So I pulled out a couple sketchbooks, which are, embarrassing and terrifying. And I normally never do that kind of self reflection, but
Oh
I
shit, that's
realized
awesome.
how much stuff. Oh, I mean, it's just volumes of sketchbooks from, my whole life. So I dipped back into that period, and it's pretty much 95, 96. It's 15, 16. So imagine, that formative age. I was a sophomore in high school. At the time, I was living in Houston, and it was that kid next to me that's like, psst, hey, in class, hey, you ever heard of ska? And, kind of thing. And he makes me this punk tape, and it's got Less Than Jake, and that was amazing. And I hate to be the old man, but back in the day, if you knew what a self-addressed stamped envelope was, you could put an envelope with your address in an envelope, and I would just write a band, and they'd send you back stickers and patches.
I never fucking did that back then. I missed out, man. People
I
figured it out. I never
well,
did
it's
it.
funny because I think maybe it was a Scott thing, but I feel like Mike Park, Dill Records, I mean, they were so sweet to me. No Idea Records. I have a special relationship with these. I really think of them as friends, and not just to make myself feel better or whatever. But I mean, I remember then moving back to New Jersey after we had lived in Houston, Texas for a time, and Dill Records knew that living in Texas, I had nothing with sleeves or, pant legs on it kind of. So, and they sent me a Dill Records hoodie kind of thing, and stuff like that. So you could just build these kind of relationships. Can you imagine if somebody wrote you an actual letter about Lane Meyer or this was the scene? So it really meant a lot. And the only reason I'm talking to you today is because I wrote Less Than Jake. And it just started this back and forth where I do a drawing and Chris said, hey, that was cool. I cut it out and I clear taped it to my guitar. And the next time I saw them, sure enough, my artwork was on my favorite band's guitar. And then it
That's
was Vinny's
crazy.
drum head. And then they're sending me like, here's a t-shirt and here's a split 7-inch with Pung.
Wait, talk
And,
about. Let me dive into this a second. So, real quick, I know people were like, "Yeah, go down Less Than Jake path." For just real,
that's cool.
just for people to know you. So you grew up in Basking Ridge. So you grew up in the Jersey scene. So you were starting to go to the Jersey scene. I'm gonna put a pin here. We're gonna get the Less Than Jake, but you grew up in the Jersey scene. Like so, at 14, that's when you were starting to go to shows.
Well, I feel what I should probably do is a really quick, boring timeline of, I was born in, Flemington, New Jersey, technically, but the house I was born in was Washington, New Jersey. And then I moved to Long Valley, New Jersey. And then, my dad, his job would take us to, Indianapolis, Houston, Texas. And then I ended up back in the middle of high school, which is at the time, it was so traumatic.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I just had my first kiss, 2 months prior, all this stuff with Les and Jake we'll talk about, but it was great in hindsight. It was such a wonderful thing. So now I'm in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and I finish up high school there. And then I'd also lived in Somerville. What do you call that? What's that mall there? Somerville. And I hung out in Morristown, where you're from, all the time, the Bridgewater Mall and all that. So anyway, so that was like from 0 to 18. It was 90% New Jersey, and that does include the scene where you talk about in depth, from like 95 to 98, very much in the scene. And then I moved to Philly for 10 years and then back to Somerville, New Jersey. And then I lived in Harlem, New York City for 10 years. And then I'm in Texas today.
Oh, you're in Texas right now.
Yeah, I'm in Texas. We're trying it.
Yeah, I lived in Austin for a minute. I loved it down there. But the Jersey stuff, though, man, like so you became friends. You had said like Monkey and Steve Jaworski and
Yeah.
like Steve LWL, and so like so it's interesting to me that you're moving around. You are, especially in the middle of your high school years, you would obviously just had your first kiss somewhere, and everyone's like, we're gonna uproot you and go back to Jersey. You're like, son of a bitch.
Right.
And then that's where you go. But then when you got there, like, were you already listening to punk rock? Were you already in a scene
For
everywhere
sure.
else? Okay, so you were involved in
Well,
it outside of Jersey.
but I never thought in terms of scene. I mean, New Jersey was, I guess in Houston, it just sort of felt like if you wanted to see bands, you were going to one of two clubs. And whenever I was in Jersey, I feel like I never went to the same Firehouse twice. I was
Totally.
never at the same VFW twice, and I loved it. So sometimes when I listen to your episodes and people are just encyclopedias of venues, and I'm like, I don't know, somebody else drove, and somehow we got there,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've got memories of a million shows, but I could never tell you where they were. They were just, I don't know, there was like animal heads all over the wall. It was kind of weird, But but no,
That would be the venue that Benny used to book. Oh God, I
because
forgot the hell the name of it was.
I think there was like a front porch on it.
Peapack.
But one thing,
Yeah, Peapack. Sorry,
oh,
go.
Peapack. I
Peapack,
definitely know
right?
Peapack. But
Yeah.
if you edit out everything I've said, I'll say one thing, and that is I've always resented the bad rap that Jersey would get. And whenever some snob would say something about Jersey, I just really felt like, you're not from there. It's beautiful for one, and Jersey's awesome. And I feel like Texas was the time when I was just kind of getting into whatever. If you wanted to see No Effects or Snuff or Good Riddance or whomever, you just basically went to one of two venues. But when I went to Jersey, the reason you would be thinking scene or community or however you think about it in hindsight is because you were looking for your people, and or the people found you. You know, I basically was a new kid, and not at the start of a school year. Small town Basking Ridge in the middle of like January, dropped off, and I had all these stickers of all these bands, and it was Jay and all of New Jersey Joystick was and Monkey. They were so gracious and so kind. But Jay, I think, was the first person from Joystick who just went up to me and said, "Hey, you want a punk?" I was like, "Yeah."
I love
I was
it.
like, "Okay, okay, cool." And that was like the friendship. And then, over time, you just find out, everybody was at the time was worshiping the Bouncing Souls and Lifetime or whatever. But they were just so kind to me to take me to all these shows and meet all these people. And I think, to be frank, it sounds kind of weird, but when they found out that I was the kid who did all this stuff for Less Than Jake and all these other bands, because to me, it was just the high of highs. This was like your favorite band is, has your artwork on T-shirts. That to me was just the happiest thing in the whole world.
Hell
I was
yeah.
never walking around going like, oh, because that was the funny thing about the scene in Jersey at the time is it wasn't Steve. Nobody knew Steve Jaworski. It was Steve LWL.
Yeah.
And it was your last name was replaced by your nickname or where you were New Providence, no New Prov. So it's really funny. The vernacular was so centric
What was the
to
last name? Your last name was your band name, probably, or your zine, or
oh yeah, Anthony
something.
Annoyance, and
Anthony Noyes,
really
yeah.
really nice people and great people and really welcoming people. And again, I keep saying hindsight because I'm not saying I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was overly appreciative because they really just included me and it meant a lot.
Well, let me ask you this. So, when you moved from Houston to Jersey, you had already done the artwork for Less Than Jake?
Yeah, and again, it kind of felt traumatic because I was doing little artwork, fan artwork, but then it was somewhere around, fall of 96 or maybe, or 95, 96. And I had drawn a fan letter that was what became known as the Evo Kid. It's kind of Less Than Jake's mascot. And I did this like More Than Jake, and then Jake, which was kind of like a send up of Vinny, their drummer at the time, like a little bit. And then Less Than Jake. And the secret to the Evo Kid is the truth is, if you look at the original drawing of the Evo Kid, that's exactly me in cartoon form as at that age, when everybody knew me like that. I was that jumping up ball of energy with spiky hair or whatever. So again, it was just a fan letter, but they wrote me back and they said, "Can you put this, I think, on unlined paper?" It was such a doodle on
That's
notebook
amazing.
paper because we want to make it into a shirt.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I'm 15, mind blown. But fast forward now, I mean, I consider Vinny and all those guys sincerely some of my oldest and dearest friends. Especially the last year heavily with Roger working on Silver Linings and Buddy working with him on Coffee Project for 10 years. So I just really appreciate how much of their a small part I've gotten to play. And again, one of my favorite bands and most wonderful, hardworking, awesome people. So, back to talking about, did you guys know you had the X factor? It's like they're just compelled to do it. They did it. They do it. And wow, you deserve all your success.
So you just see, I was probably putting the pieces together that because you kept saying you had two venues in Houston and they were clubs, and you see Good Riddance and No Effects. To me, that there's a giant separation that you feel when you go to giant venues, like you can't connect with them. And then in Jersey, that was where we would go to local shows, and everyone said like they're going there. I didn't feel there was a barrier between me and the band. I could go up to them and talk to them, so I felt there was no separation. So I was thinking for some reason that because of that, you moved from Texas, got to Jersey, saw how open and they kind of saw how connected you really could be to music, and then you sent the letters to Less Than Jake saying like, Oh yeah, look, like I get it. We're all there is no separation between us, but it was complete opposite. So I was totally
Well,
wrong.
I love that interpretation though, and I'd like to say that's it on some level, but initially it was more, I don't know, raw than that. It was just, wow, I really love your music, and this 7 inch has an address, and I'm going to write you with a little doodle, and I'll do the self-addressed stamped envelope because, like I said, I'll get some stickers out of it,
So right,
because
so
that's where my
crazy.
brain was as a 15-year-old,
But I feel like
and
it's crazy that you nailed that design though of the Evo Kid like that. Every time I see that, and I would and obviously it goes I compare it connect right to Less the Jake, but you encompass their sound with that graphic.
that's really, I really appreciate you saying that because I don't know if I would have thought consciously that I nailed anything.
But it's just like, but you said, but you did though because you said that was me, just like this, like big-eyed, big grin, spiky hair, jumping around. Yay! I mean, that's what you wanted to do at a Less Than Jake show. You just took one character, made it you, and you're like, well, this is what I do at the shows. And you're going, well, you're a super fan like everyone else, so that's what we feel like because that's what we don't look exactly like that, but the inside, I was like, oh, I feel like that character right there when I go to see them or hear them. Like I want to jump all over the place.
That's the height of compliment to me because I feel now consciously 2 decades later, that's what I'm trying to emulate when I work with bands is this, I'm
Mm.
trying to represent you guys without words, back to like, lyrics are about thoughts and, music is a feeling. So what am I doing with a doodle when this is your music, so to speak? But I really appreciate you saying that. I think for me, what was life changing, and I don't say that lightly, was how people, I don't think thank you for saying that I nailed it, but what I couldn't believe was how many people gravitated towards it and attached themselves to it. I mean, the people that I've met since that have it tattooed on their body,
Oh
or
wow.
just a guy that in Philly that whose name was Jake and had a keychain just because somebody gave it to him as a gift. And I was just like, that's crazy. Like that's a drawing in keychain form of me as a sophomore in high school, you know?
That's
And I just met
wild.
this stranger. So, or I just get these emails from people that'll, this is sounding maybe a little bit ridiculous, but people that are like, hey, I just wanted you to know I came from a broken home. Your artwork in Lesson Jake's Anthem really spoke to me. I've gotten so many emails. Or then you see, in the age of Instagram, following a hashtag that your artwork on a 7 inch is in every country, every continent, I should say.
That's so wild.
And you just go, man, that's nuts. That's nuts.
But talk about that for a second, because I think a lot we were hitting on it before when a band is trying to break big and they never do, and then another band does. Like that's an example, and that could be a statement to anybody, like someone who's I don't know working a career in X and this they never get to like the C level of where they want to go. I don't know. That's like that's a businessy way to say it, but bands in general, they would grind and grind and grind, and then the other band that's doing it at the same time as them, they're blowing up and they're huge, and like, man, what is it like to be on a tour bus? What is it like to be this? So that feeling is, I want to witness this because it feels like if I do that, it's gonna feel like I'm thinking it's gonna feel. So with you and seeing your artwork on the albums and then seeing it all over the place, did it feel as big as you thought it would?
For me, the first time I was 15 or 16 and I saw my artwork on a Less Than Jake shirt, I was just a kid that might as well have gotten a golden ticket to Wonkaville or whatever. It was just like just magic and really awesome. And I wasn't thinking any thoughts of a path or this is what I want to do. I just knew like I like to draw and I draw. Today, when maybe December or whenever it was that Less Than Jake announced Silver Linings, and the reaction was so huge and it was such like a bummer year for everybody, to put it mildly, that people were praising Less Than Jake like they had just given them a much deserved gift, that thank you at Christmas time at this crummy COVID year, you guys came out with new music. And to more directly answer your question, what I'm trying to get to is I felt like I was piggybacking, but I felt like I was celebrating with them, and not that people were celebrating me, but I have to admit, people were. I just felt like this was a happy day. Christmas bells were ringing. Less Than Jake, new album. The way people responded with the likes, and then there'd be people that were just like, "Yo, this artwork rules," and put it on a skate deck, or I got to tattoo this one. And I just felt warm fuzzies. And it was a really tough project behind the scenes for a lot of reasons.
Why?
Um, well, it was it's kind of a tough year for everybody. It was a tough move for me. I'll just say that I did it for my loved ones. I didn't do it entirely for me, so I was trying to catch up, being grateful for the good stuff that I had. But and then it was just nobody knew how to react to COVID. In the middle of all this, honestly, my wife's mom, she passed away,
Oh man.
and this is like in the middle of me talking to Roger about Roger just wants to get this record out. They've had it in the can, and I'm just like, man, Roger, I'm in a bad place. But all I want to do, I'm living for doing this record kind of thing. So if you could just be patient with me. And he had already been through, apparently, or the band had been through, and I hope this doesn't step on any toes. I think they've been talking to several artists, and they had, so I just really felt, and I feel this way about everybody. And I mean this, that if you email me or get in touch with me to do some artwork for you, that I have to honor that compliment. Wow, you would ask me to do artwork for you? Like, I can't believe. Thank you so much. So I just felt like after all this time, and you could talk about Greased, but I've never done a full length cover for Less Than Jake, and I just felt like this is how it should all close. If this is the last thing I ever do, it'll have come full circle, and I'll have gotten to do this record about silver linings, which everything I do on every record, every drawing, no matter how arbitrary it seems, there's a decision behind it. I mean, there's tons of decisions that went into silver linings, and I think it's a pretty special package with a lot to look at if you're lucky enough to get it on, the almighty vinyl. 2 square feet of art.
Well, let's talk about that for a second because I have it open right now on Discogs, and it's the cover is color that's on top of darkness, right? So so this is my interpretation. It's colorful and it's got that the top and the bottom kind of like the top is the pot. It's like heaven and hell kind of. The bottom is the
Yeah,
past, and it's like that's the previous, and the top is like, all right, we're moving forward. But like Less Than Jake is in black, and the background is dark and dark. It's black and dark gray. Silver Linings is gray, and then you go on the inside of it, and there's no color. So is that like comparable to where did you bring your headspace into this? And like how you felt and like did you kind of compare it to be like I'm feeling like this, but this is also a feeling that people had this last year because of COVID and everything. And so did you bring that in and say, you know what, this is how I'm feeling, I'm bringing this to the drawing board, but I think it's going to go along with this because they're trying to break out of the darkness, and the cover is the color that's coming out of it, but the rest is the past that they're breaking away from.
thank you for that's a very thoughtful assessment, and a lot of that's correct. First of all, I have to say, I mean, I'm only doing the band's music, trying to do it justice. They obviously bring a tremendous amount of ideas and art direction to the table. But back to something you had said earlier about, all these buildings that look the same. I just don't know how I could possibly do anything and not bring myself
Mm.
to the table. Like if I built a building, it's probably going to be, first of all, collapse at the first gust of wind. But, there's going to be something of myself in there. So with Less Than Jake, I mean, a lot of those ideas were coming from band discussions. One of the difficulties was I had done what seemed like a quarter of a sketchbook full of thumbnails and color studies, and it just, I mean, there were a lot of times where I wouldn't have blamed Roger or the band from just saying, Ugh, let's just move on. You gave it your best shot, kind of thing. It just seemed like it wasn't working. And then this one concept, it started off as a kernel. And even I'll admit, I looked at that final cover I turned in and I just felt like, oh no, it's the worst thing I've ever done or whatever. And I sent it to Roger and he responded with like, that's it, this is it. And everybody loves it. And I think the label had some notes and some very valid concerns. For instance, the colors. It's like people are going to think it's a reggae record, but Roger and the band put their foot down and they said no. And I don't know if this came out of frustration with them of being like, gosh darn it, we've got the artwork, let's move on. But the band put their foot down and said, lyrically, musically, everything you said, honestly, Mike, about like everywhere we've been in the last year and all our thoughts and feelings, this is the cover. And that suddenly made me feel really good about the cover because the band was standing up for, like I had done it. I did. Even how much of myself is in all these little crazy details that you'd have to blow it up to see. The band felt like I got it. and I did them justice, and that made me feel good. And then when they announced it and they showed the cover and everyone just like rejoiced and threw confetti in there, then I really just felt like, man, just enjoy this. Don't beat yourself up over like every single thing you did yesterday. Just have a happy day. Did I answer any of your questions? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you totally did. I mean,
Okay.
it's a dope cover, dude. I mean, the one thing. Okay, here's a technical question. This is just for me on the setting up files side of it with
Oh,
the people.
please. Oh, I can't wait to get in the nerdy nitty gritty
And
because there's
I'm
so
not
much
gonna.
production work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go down. This is more of just file setup, right? And I apologize to anyone who's not a graphic designer who won't get won't get anything out of this, but fuck it, it's my podcast.
Skip
Okay,
ahead to minute 42.
when yeah, right. When you're doing this though, you because the cover on Discogs, it looks like this is the CD, but this is the I think this is CD. Did they do it on? They put it on CD, or it's just vinyl?
Yeah, no, the vinyl was one of my excuses to say I'm just looking for any excuse to, I don't want to jokingly say spend somebody else's money, but if I can get away with spot varnish, die cuts, crazy colors, silver foil stamping, whatever, like I want to do that. Especially, I would never do it arbitrarily. If it serves, everything has a decision. And if it serves the purpose of like the idea and the feeling, and more importantly, for me, vinyl is about the experience. And
Oh,
I really
totally,
feel like
thousand
for me,
percent.
oh yeah, every time I sit down with any band's 12-inch record, I'm actually I'm not doing something else. I'm sitting on the couch with 2 feet of artwork and lyrics and liner notes, and I am immersed in an experience. And so I really, 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 really wanted to do that for Silver Lining. So if anyone gets a chance to see it in person, I feel that's like the ultimate Silver Linings experience because I basically have like your four color CMYK. Well, everything starts off with pencil, just a pencil on a paper. In fact, if I and it gets patchworked in Photoshop or whatever, and then I've got paints. I do a lot of watercolor, a lot of messy stuff, and I'm scanning in all these textures, and I'm just making this gigantic, horrifically messy Photoshop file. Production wise, what I knew was for the lower hellish half, if we can get a silver ink, but for the actual Silver Lining, if we could get stamped silver foil. And I got to tell you, it really pops, and I think it was worth. And I got to give credit because this is super punk rock, and I want to touch on something that's so important about the scene and inclusiveness and all that is somehow Pure Noise Records took all this stuff and made an $18 record, and that is super cheap. And I know, like, anytime I spend $20, my heart palpitates a little bit. It's like, oh, $20. How am I going to eat this week? But
Wait, for a vinyl
I think
record?
yeah, I think
Dude, I drop
a
like
lot of
22
records.
to $30 on vinyl these days, man.
No, but I think that's the thing. If I'm at vintage vinyl or I'm at like the Scotty's used bin, then yeah, I could pick up stuff for $1. But when I'm buying like a Mondo or Waxworks soundtrack, it could be $40. So for a punk band to still have like an $18 LP, I think is cheap.
Oh, it's
I think
so
is
cheap.
affordable. And I think that's like the most punk rock thing because when I got into punk rock from like 95 and on, it was, and in my day, this is so embarrassing. It was literally $2 7 inches,
Yeah.
$5 shows, $8 LPs. Let alone you could go to record stores and people are just kicking 7 inches to the curb kind of thing, and you're like, wow, this whole world is open up to me with my lunch money, basically. And I'm sure there's equivalents now where you're just like, yeah, it's all streaming, just whatever. But I really appreciate that if you want to have the experience, it's $18 plus $5 media mail.
It's so cheap though, man. It's so insanely cheap because I'm looking at this thing and I guess really you kind of touched on it and this is the technical side too. And I want to jump into Greased and all that, but you because you have to design this thing for the biggest possible thing it could be because I mean, I don't know if a record label is like you need to set the file up at 100% when you're designing it so it could be going on the side of a building, which technically it actually goes down in quality because
Right,
from a
right.
distance it doesn't matter. But like, do you design this to the biggest possible thing it'd have to be on? Like, would vinyl be the biggest artboard, or is there something bigger that you have to do? Because this is all color and sketch, so you can't design this for a CD and they go, oh, by the way, this has got to go on a vinyl record now, and you're like, shit, I got to scale this up. It's going to lose all the quality.
Well, like one thing that, and I'm thrilled to talk about this, one thing that I pride myself on is if you come to me, if you need, I'm happy to take care of everything for you. I have dreams of running a record label, but there's so much that I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I could never do distribution. But as far as like production goes and on all that stuff from producing vinyl, yeah. So and I knew from my experience that unless I was doing something vector, that it's never going to be on the side of a building. But this
Yes.
is very punk rock of me, and that's I basically have pencils worn down to nubs. I don't have nice watercolors. I have these praying 8 color baby watercolors that you grab at like the grocery store for your kid kind of thing because they're cheap. That's what I could afford. You know, when you're starting off and you're trying to trade rent for a song, you're not buying Winsor Newton. As far as the size goes and patchworking, I basically had to adapt a style, if I have any style at all, and specifically your question, a process based on if I had limitations or whatever, but I don't have a scanner that's a drum scanner to scan 2 foot stuff. I have the same 8x10 all in one that all of us could like barely afford for $40 at Best Buy or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I've got to do everything on an 8.5x11 and then like kind of like patch together, so to speak. But I'm scanning it in at something unreasonable like 2400 ppi because I know that
Jesus.
I'm going to have to enlarge it and I want to enlarge it. So in the case of something like a movie poster, my dream would be a billboard, but I know that I've made sure that hey, this thing's got to be like 6 foot tall if Tommy wants to go to the film festivals or whatever. Yeah, I've got some of my file sizes are just beasts, but I've adapted my way of working to make sure that it's like best quality, but I'm still using just like little pencils in my gnarled hand and like the cheapest copy paper I can afford, and I'm just putting it all together in Photoshop.
So all of this stuff, all of your design work, I'm I'm thinking the answer is no, but all the like silver linings, this was all hand drawn and then scanned in, or this was done in Photoshop.
Yeah, no, 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 please. That's a well. Okay, I see what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying?
It kind of, yeah, it looks both, nothing, all of it.
But it's like a mix. Like how much of that design are you actually doing in Photoshop on top of the
Gosh,
sketch?
I feel like everything I look at as I'm looking at it is a different piece. So I did try to make one awesome drawing, and there was just times when we just changed it and said, "Hey, could you change the bottom?" And you're like, "Okay, no problem." Or like, let me do the lining. So if I splayed it all out in my draft table, it looks like about a dozen pieces of paper
Oh wow.
with scribble scrabble. I took a brush and I did all that hand done type. I'm really proud when my
Wow.
hand is in it, but then I've got to scan 12 pieces of paper, and now I'm hitting like copy and paste a million times because I just need that S to move over or whatever.
Holy
And
crap,
then,
dude.
and same thing with the painted splotches. And then there's the whole part of the process where they'll go like, the label at one point said it's a little too reggae-ish color, like, well, let me just try this. I'll take those painted splotches and I'll make it blue and this and that. So there's that whole aspect of it. So that's the Photoshop aspect. So I wish that I always had like one cool painting for people to look at. Like if anyone is ever like, can I get the original artwork? I'd be like, well, I hope you like 12 crummy drawings with no color because
Dude, that's
I
crazy.
don't know how you're going to portfolio that.
That's so dope. So it's like you literally, it's kind of, this is a total throw, but the Nine Inch Nails Downward Spiral, that cover,
Yeah.
the guy, the cover, the artwork is literally the dude took canvas and just beat the shit out of it and took a photo of it. Like that's it. So it's the actual art is physical, which I think is so cool. It's like it goes to your point of you listening to vinyl. It's an experience. You're touching the music, right? With Spotify, it's digital and there's such a disconnect. Like this whole NFT shit that's going on where you can buy a GIF for like $60 million. I just don't understand it. And I feel like I should probably jump in it somehow since I know how to animate and I'm probably leaving money on the table right now. But that digital aspect is you can go and when you buy a painting, you can touch it. It's got life to it. But it's if it's digital, there's no you can't really you could touch a computer screen, but it's not the same.
It's so hard for me because I try not to be an old man about it. But yeah, same thing. NFTs, I just feel like I'll just leave that for the kiddos. I mean, you're talking to somebody that would dedicate himself entirely to doing cover for an 100-year-old analog technology. And I think as somebody said, I don't smoke, but I love the joke about I can't roll a joint on an MP3. I just think I can't have the same immersive experience. You can cut that joke out, please.
I'm keeping that in. I think
No,
though,
but
man, I think you're leaving money on the table though because you're known for artwork. I think if you did sell something as an NFT, I mean, I'm seeing kids out there that are on Instagram and they're putting up an animated GIF that's looping for 10 seconds and they're getting like 2 grand for it, 10 grand for it. I'm like, what the fuck? I
yeah,
need to do this. I don't know what it would be, but I don't know.
my dad and I have talked about this a great deal, and we've had some super interesting. And I'm trying to find like where do I sit on this whole thing, and I don't have any answers, but I am trying to remain open minded. Just like a lot of these records, they have a coupon for a digital download. If you buy something from Thrill Jockey, you can stream it on their site for life. It's like permanent download access. So everybody's got like one foot in, one foot out. Of course, shouldn't I be compensated for this? Can I get compensated for this? But something that happened recently that I wish I could do more. And I guess you could do whatever you want with your money. But I guess as far as I've gotten with it is like, can't I try to maybe auction some of this off for charity? The way things are now, like I was doing some light. Jonathan Narmita, who is from Bask Ridge and did the artwork for the New Jersey in a Nutshell comp,
Uh-huh.
he's teaching
Oh wow.
artwork. It's on the archives, I think. He's teaching art on the West Coast now, so I was able to do some. Like he just asked me if I would just do like a couple days of just guest lecturing, by way of the scene. So how great of him to do that. And I basically said, at the time, I mean, the world was just in flames, kind of thing. And I was like, maybe what I'll do is that was another situation where like I have nothing to say to kids.
You have so much to say to kids, dude. Like, I mean,
It was great, but I thought I'll take the paycheck and I'll donate it to like the ACLU or something, like,
why wouldn't you keep? I bet it's not me being selfish.
because
Like,
because
why
I'm an
don't?
idiot.
But what? See, that's the thing. It's like I talked to someone recently, and it's like someone like the oatmeal. No, it was the oatmeal. Someone put something out, and some fucking idiot was like, "Why aren't you donating all this money to charity?" It's like you fucking idiot. The people are just because you're art, and I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the person. That like
You can. It's okay. We're
no,
friends.
like no, it's not definitely not you. It's just what bothers me is that people treat art as if it's like charity and you're just donating. You're like, no, what the I took time to do this, just like you took time in your 9 to 5 to finish a task. This was a task, but it was created.
Oh gosh.
Why the hell
Yeah.
does that have to be donated? I mean, like you donating to charity, like that you're a good person to do that. I just think that when people create art and they're like, oh, I have to give this money away. You're like, why the fuck does that attach to that? Like, sure, it's good to donate, and like I donate food every week to like a food box and stuff, and it's,
Right on.
and it's like, but I don't when I'm spending a lot of time on and designing stuff, I'm not going, gee, let me take this and if I get money for it, I give it away because the rest of the world is like, you should donate. It's like, why don't you donate your fucking paycheck from the last year?
Yeah. Or your
It's like,
time or
it drives me
something.
nuts.
I'm sure you must experience this with all the artwork and all the the variety of outlets that you have creatively and professionally and all the ways that they intersect, right? Where
Yeah.
people either look at you like Mike Doyle is a wizard from another dimension and I'm so excited about what he's doing for us, or like you said, they just think, is like $50 okay? Or, like I couldn't talk to a plumber the way that people talk to me as a designer.
Uh-huh.
They'd be like, no, get out of here, but I only use that bathroom like once a year.
Oh, exactly. So I could pay you in 60 days, right? What?
Yeah, or your favorite, right? Oh, exposure. And you go, hey, that's
Uh,
awesome. I just moved to Harlem and my landlord actually takes exposure. So yeah, let's totally do that. People are gonna see this bakery logo. Thank you, and you wanna like just like meet me in the middle, please, because again, I very blue collar. When I moved to New York and I was like really trying to make a go of it, you just sit there and go, yeah, $50, no problem, like, cause that's half the phone bill. So, I'll have half the phone bill, and I'll work 10 hours on it and $50 and that's great. And now I just feel like I'm at a place where I'm so lucky to be doing what I do that like, what's a small donation here or there, or to the point of like the artwork for Silver Linings or the Evo kit, if I were to like donate it, or even if it was an NFT. And again, like you could do whatever you want with your money, but it's like, what's the most amount of good I can do with this gift? Like, I could totally like blow it on bubble gum, you know what I mean? Or like, you can't throw money at every problem, but I sort of feel like, and not to be corny, but so I've got by the time this airs, there'll be 2 and 5. I have 2 sons, And I got to this weird point where, and you kind of, as you grow up and you kind of beat yourself up for not maybe being exactly where you thought you'd be when you were 18, and you go, well, and you find different ways to justify your decisions. You go, I'm not wasting time and I'm not wasting talent and this and that. And you're like, hey, it's okay if I change my priorities or my interests or my dreams and goals or what makes me fulfilled, etc. But I kind of got to this weird point. I'm really sorry to be that guy that brings up kids, but I'm
Oh
just
no.
like
The
pop
majority the
punk.
majority of people
I'm
listening to this have like kids, man. So
I'm just like pop punk head over heels in love with my two boys. They're so, if you know, you know. And I kind of felt like gone maybe the days where my greatest gift to the world is going to be on somebody's wall or in their record collection. It might be that, and this is just the last 4 years talking, where the best thing that I could do for the world is just to raise some kind, decent human beings and send them on their way. Like that might be because at some point, back to the Bill Murray, like it just doesn't matter. Like I'm going to die. Nobody's going to tend my grave. They're going to say my name for the last time. And whatever, if you're lucky, maybe you're like the Beatles and you wrote a song that's going to last like three, maybe five generations at most. But otherwise, like ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So cool. I got to do this, really have this amazing experience and live it with the Evo Kid. And thanks to Less Than Jake and a million other wonderful bands that I've been so lucky to work with. But right now, as a dad, I just kind of feel like, hey, just go be good, go be kind, and have fun.
yeah, man. I
That's going to
mean,
be the best I can do.
I think you could balance that though, and then, like also you didn't stop after Less Than Jake. You kept going with like a lot of stuff. Like I'm on your website, and you have you made a career out of it. You took your gift and you continue to go with it, right? As far as the teaching thing, man, I think it's a missed opportunity because you everyone has something to say. And there's always, even at an hour lecture, if there's that, I mean, out of an entire book, I don't read an entire book to go, I'm going to absorb all this. There's like that one paragraph or that one sentence that like clicks, and that's the thing that I was looking for. And I'm going, that motivated me, or was the aha moment that I needed to go do this thing, or, oh, I just really enjoyed this. But I mean, if I go back and read all the Harry Potter books again or something, there's things I definitely missed where I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot that happened, but I always loved this part of it. And it's just little things that I took, and I think you teaching kids is going to be the fact that you take pieces of paper that you draw on and scan them and make artwork out of it. That would blow people's minds because you might have that one kid who's like, I thought I was weird for wanting to do that, and I started going just and I now I what's the tab thing that everyone sketches on?
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I forget what that's called, but people go digital, and the one kid might be like, "Oh, I thought I had to follow the pack, but you're doing this, so that just for some weird reason gives me the okay to go. I'm gonna do that." And now they aren't gonna miss out on this opportunity to go in that direction and see what that does for them.
it's so. I really appreciate the kind words, and I do think that I do want to teach, and I absolutely would. And I can say this much: if this is the only thing I imparted, and I laugh every time something cliche or corny is, I absolutely sincerely believe it because I just try. I love it if there's a rare moment in adulthood where I can leave my cynicism at the door. But I don't know where I was in a restaurant and some kid, I was just drawing something for them by way of like a family member or something. Then they were like, because I used to work for different like toy companies and all kinds of stuff. And the kid was asking something. He asked a sincere question about what I do and can he do it? And I looked at him and I could think of no more true distillation of it all. But hey, kid, if you work hard and follow your dreams, you could do anything. And that sounds so lame, but I really, really believe that for any kid. It's like, what do you want to do? Don't let anybody tell you you can't, because you can. The caveat is it's an insane amount of work,
Yeah, that's the
but just
thing,
chip
man.
away.
That's the thing, dude. I mean, I tell it to people all the time. I mean, I tell it to adults because adults are giving up. I'm going, dude, you're 40. What the hell? You might have another 60 years left. What do you mean you're just old and decrepit? It's like, my God, if you can walk, hell, if you can run, like, what are you telling? Like, you can still process things. Don't give me this crap. I mean, this is gonna like just kind of to tie it back in the whole scene thing, because I know we're jumping all over the place, but I think this all makes sense because I want to learn about. This is all just pulling things out of the person who we people listening to this episode is the dude who did all this artwork and these things for these bands, excuse me, and comps and things like that. That like I like getting into your head and being like, wow, this is the dude who created like the shit for Less Than Jake and like Pinball Records and all these things, and so I think it all makes sense. But to kind of go back into the whole scene thing, I mean, this is where I grew up. I was
Mm.
taught that by going to these shows was you could do whatever you want because I showed up and no one's really telling me that, and like maybe some hardcore bands would get out there and be like, yo man, you can do what you want, and this song's called something about veganism, it was like, but so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool, what it showed me, not the words from people, was going to the scene and thinking, and I got there, I want to play in a band. Granted, I got in the scene because I was playing in a band, but we're playing in a band and a band would go on tour, and I was like, wait, I want to go on tour and I'm going to make that happen. So I would go in that direction. And so anything that I've ever done in my life was always, what do I feel like I want to do? I want to do this. All right, I want to go do this. And it really has become whatever I want to do. But it also matches exactly what you said. It's not because you just decide, you just kind of float to the finish line and go, holy shit, I'm rich and I'm so successful. You just grind and you have to put the fucking work into it.
Big time. And that's why I always considered kind of like a blue collar thing. And to have no ego about it, is really, really important. To definitely have confidence to stand up for yourself when the time comes. But beyond that, you were kind of touching on something that I can really relate to, which is this compulsion, which is I have to do this. Not because I
Mm.
don't know what else I would do. I mean, I think there was a really good episode of your show, and I don't remember if it was somebody from Shelter or Text the Reason, where they were just saying, like, I might not want to do this. I'm going to allow myself to grow. But in the meanwhile, like, this is what I want to do. And so in hindsight, I was kind of asking myself, like, well, what is this scene and who am I in it? And you want to say community, but for me, really, it's this shared experience because I mean, I make art and music that no one will ever see or hear or whatever, but why do you share anything, Mike? Why record? Why tour? Why post? Why podcast? And it goes back to that idea that you cannot possibly predict the impact that you're having on people that are moved by one of your songs, reading your webcomic. Is it just for you? I don't let me speak for you, but I feel compelled, and it's selfish and it's selfless.
I came to terms with it. There's a thing where I go, by putting myself out there as much as possible, I'm rewarding myself with the ability to constantly do my own thing. So it's the I have
That's
this
awesome.
I have this inability to care about, or I have this inability to not be so transparent or so vocal about anything. Like I'm very vulnerable about my life, like on my Daily Bread podcast. Like I speak very
Yeah.
candidly about shit. But I took it as, you know what, man? There's a lot of people that are very scared to talk about stuff. Like I don't have that fear, and I'm just gonna utilize that to do it because this is gonna build maybe this life of I don't have to do projects for people anymore. Like maybe like I want to go into a place where I'm just creating and that's how I'm sustaining my life. Like I don't want to be making things for people anymore. Like
Yeah.
this podcast, like sure, people listen to it and it's for them, which is great. I just made it for myself, and it just happened to be that people like it. Like I thought it was like a couple months ago. I was like, I'm not gonna. There's a lot of times I'll say something and I'm like, I don't know if I should say that. And then I go, that's the reason I should say it is because that's gonna make the fact that I think it's gonna shake shit up, or that's one thing because I think you're going in the right direction when you're scared of it. But the other thing is like this is gonna help someone else open up about their own stuff.
I really applaud you for that, and that's a superpower. And I feel like that you're kind of reminded of the times when somebody was vulnerable and it spoke to you, and you sort of like, oh my gosh, that's how I feel or whatever. And
Yes.
and I and I think that's important. Like I said, you have no idea who's listening to that, and who knows that. And I feel like with the scene, music and art gave us the most positive outlets I can think of. It's so exciting to I take for granted how expressive I can be, even when I'm trying to hide myself through cryptic drawings and detailed symbolism, hoping that I don't actually have to tell people how I think or feel.
Oh, that's
We
dope.
get to be expressive. Because like back then, like Jersey, late 90s, I was just ravenously consuming everything I could be exposed to. A record store, shows, zines, distros, and not just because of the feeling that we love of like finding a new favorite band, but I was finding people who were matching my energy and much better articulating my emotions. And that just ignited me. And it still happens, but it's like as rare as Haley's Comet. But I love that feeling of just being able to contribute to the scene without even meaning to. Whether you're just
Yeah.
writing bands and drawing for them and piggybacking what all I'm doing, anything that I'm known for or liked for, is kind of like just piggybacking off of somebody else's great music. But I am so grateful that I get to maybe mean something to somebody else out there.
Yeah, man. I mean, like all people need to do is just realize you're gonna die, like you keep saying, and just have fun with this shit. Like that, I really started to be like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna constantly. It's gonna look like a soup that doesn't make sense. It's just every ingredient's in it sometimes, but sometimes if you look at it, you're like, no, it actually there's a certain flavor profile that's coming out of this. But it's like, why? I don't know. I just get up in the morning and yeah, I get locked into having projects and having to do things to get paid for it. Like I had to cut my day in half right now to do this interview, which is more meaningful to me than to do this other project where it's like, sure, it's going to pay me a lot of money at the end, but the whole time I'm just dragging through it like, man, I don't want to fucking do this. And that's where I know, like right now, I'm at this crossroads of being, all right, you got to start feeling what it is that you want to do.
Dude, that's I'm sort of at a weird. I've been saying crossroads myself, but do you feel like some of my friends who are artists, they're filmmakers and different things, they're asking me, I don't know if they're projecting their own stuff, but do you feel like that if you're not doing what you're meant to be doing, like you're not like, do you need a purpose at all?
My
Does
purpose
like
is just
what grinds you down?
My purpose is just to just show up and be like, am I down with this? Am I happy with this? And granted, a lot of times, like if I go for a run or if I go to like the gym or something, going there sucks. Like starting it off sucks. And then once I'm done, I'm going, God damn, that was totally worth it. So to get the outcome, sometimes it isn't just it's always easy. And tying a purpose to something, I think that was screwing me with my animation company for so long because I was like, I need to tie this to be it has to give back all the time, like all these business books that I read. And then last year I was like, dude, I was like, you know what, man, let me have a real conversation with myself. What do I want? I was like, I want to be fucking rich as fuck. And as soon as I did that, I stopped putting pressure on my animation company. Now, this and my comic, I do this with complete just like flow, and it's just, I'm doing this to create. But the animation shit was, I need to do this because I want to make a ton of fucking money because when I have a ton of money, then I can help because it's like when the plane's going down, you put
Right.
your mask on first. So it's like once I started doing that, that's when shit started popping off, and I was like, okay, there we go. I took the pressure off of this because everyone told me in these books of how to be successful. And
Right.
I was like, I think I need to stop reading this crap and be like, what do I want? I was like, I selfishly want to be stupid rich. I was like, okay,
That's
but tie it to
fine.
that. Yeah, and I was like, I'm not gonna like be mad at myself for that.
No, and I love that you said that because again, I definitely went through periods like every 5 years going, I did not mean to take this 9 to 5. This is not what I dreamed about doing. But I mean, a few things. One, I remember in college just kind of taking a job at an insurance company, which as a young punk, you're just like, not me, man, no office for me. But you just find out really quickly that they're all just people, which sounds really obvious now. But at the time
Yeah.
as a kid, like you just needed to see that these were just really good people who in their day were into the equivalent of Less Than Jake. It was just Black Sabbath or whatever it was. And they're just good people working that job. And then today, similarly, so when I was in New York, I did it was supposed to be like a 6 day stint at a big corporation, and it turned into this 5 year thing. And I remember thinking, oh man, I lost all this momentum. I moved to New York on a Philly budget, got a sweet 2 bedroom in Harlem, and I'm doing it. I'm just doing music and art and this, that, or the other. And now I'm in an office job. No, but I all of a sudden, like, because I had never taken a cab because you just couldn't afford it. It was one of those things where suddenly that fear that was in my belly all the time because I prided myself on saying yes to everything, but it was always with this fear. So now I was cashing a paycheck and doing all this freelance passion projects, and it did a couple things. One, I got to say no, which was kind of cool. We're like, hey, I'm really sorry, I just can't do this design for you. So I was able to say no, and that means I could only say yes to the stuff that I thought was cool because I just wanted to do like the best work I could with cool people. And then you get that financial worry. And this other cool thing happened. My wife and I went through all this really crazy stuff when we had our first child. She was able to say, like, I kind of want to just like focus on this. And I was in a place where I said, hey, you know what? We can do this. Just focus on, we've been broke before. Now we'll be broke as a family. So why don't you just focus on being the mom that we thought like we would never get to be, kind of thing. So, and I sat there and I said, I'm not going to beat myself up for going into an office, which by the way was full of some of like the most awesome people, so much talent under one roof, and it was like totally fine that I wasn't 24/7 doing like toys and records and comics. I was providing for my family, and I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I was providing for my family for 3 years because I wasn't this cool punk rock guy anymore. But I was like, I'm actually like caveman proud to be able to say, like, don't worry about it. We've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
We've been through everything. Everything else is just weather the storm.
So everyone listening, it's definitely not gotten away from me that I haven't gone back and structured the same way. But I think what I'm getting
I'm
out of this,
sorry.
no, 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 because I trust me, every conversation I have, it's always going the way that it's supposed to be going, like that I enjoy that's going, because I'm like, this is what I want to get out of it. I think what I want to establish right now is what really came to me is that this is really a conversation between two dudes who grew up in the scene and what we took from it and how we utilize that now and like how it's like affected our decisions moving forward because it's embedded in us. Granted, there's other things in life too. It's not 100% the scene, but I think like you and I, not saying we're the only people at all. There's millions of people out there that do their own thing, but I think like I can come from the standpoint that, again, reiterating what I said earlier, is that because of this scene, this showed me that the feeling that I got in high school, or actually feeling I got when I was like elementary school or middle school, was like I don't want to do. I'm like I don't want to be my dad. My dad was great. He was a great dude. He was fantastic, but I'd see him get up at 5 in the morning, wear a suit, and make his coffee and go out the door when it was dark out. To this day, get up in the morning, like I wear shorts and a t-shirt, and I go to an office that's a co-working space that's 2 blocks from me, and I come home and I pass by a brewery and I go there, or I do whatever the fuck I want to because I want to be so opposite. But I felt that at a young age when when I started going to shows. I was like, oh my God, I can actually do that. I can actually do my own life. And so now I feel like it's a conversation with that two people that went with it and went in that direction.
I'm so grateful to get to talk to you about this, and I apologize if this has kind of gone off the rails at some times. And it's funny, this is the wrong thought to be taking from that, but I remember some of my first shows with Les and Jake and MU30 and the Blue Meanies, and I remember being 15 or to 18 or whatever, even Hot Water Music, and you're looking up, even if they're all on the floor or whatever. But I just felt, for some reason, I incorrectly assumed that these were all adults that had their lives pretty much figured out, just as you kind of do now. You're like our parents kind of thing. And you
Yes.
don't realize that everybody is just a kid winging it. And it's so
That's
funny to me
great.
that I actually thought, like, wow, Blue Meanies, you guys are like older and this is what you do. And you're like, oh, man, what was I doing at 22? Like
100%.
I didn't. So,
Such
but I
a
love that everybody.
great, oh man, that was such a great way to think about that. That's amazing. I mean, they were like what? Some of them were 19. I mean, Brendan from
Yeah,
Slapstick, he was only 2 years older than me when he was 16 when Slapstick blew up. I was 14.
yeah. And there we were watching them. I know we were at the same Broadway show, where same thing. I was just like, oh, what a legend. He's
Yeah.
got his leopard hair and taped up shoes. And
I thought the same thing, man. I was like, oh my God, we're playing these shows with the fucking Broadways and Tuesdays. They were in
yeah,
Slapstick. This is crazy. That's the guy who is the singer that's on the CD that I have, and he's on the back. That makes him look so much bigger to
100%.
me. Wait, which Broadway show? Um, Now diving into it again, but which you said you went to? Which Broadway Tuesday show did you actually make? 'Cause there was 3 or 4 that week.
I'm really sorry because I know there was like a mini tour, and is it another one of these scenarios where I never went to the VFW hall ever again? There was enough animal heads on the wall for even one of the bands to kind of remark they were probably vegan. That like this is kind of creepy. There was a porch outside, and I remember thinking, and I mean no offense to
It's
anyone, but
Mansville,
I
is Mansville.
oh okay
And that's
awesome.
a correction from earlier. I said Peapack. That was wrong. Benny did Mansville Elks Lodge. So yes, that was. I think that because I had all the heads on it.
I think you just had to say Elks Lodge, and I would totally agree with you. And I didn't mean to agree with you before. I just like I said, I've been to like every VFW hall and fire hall or whatever. And I was there with all of NJ Joystick, and I remember being excited about seeing both bands. But Tuesday, I just felt like played the CD start to finish, and I just thought, well, gee, why did I come here? And then the Broadways went on and just blew my socks off. And I think all I did was listen to Broken Star or whatever for that whole summer. It's just a really great memory of like the scene, like everybody, there was no stage, just everybody on the floor together, in and out like a house party. It might as well have been, you know. But again, to me, these were legends,
Oh yeah.
like formerly of slapstick, and what they're doing next. So I still get starstruck. I did some work by way of Vinny's label, Paper and Plastic, for Stefan Egerton of the Descendants and all. And every time he would call me or still text me from time to time just to ask about like art stuff for his kids, I like slide into the living room risky business style, just like kind of dancing because like Stephen Egerton's calling me, screams, like so I still get starstruck, and I hate to sound like scene points, but for me I still get giddy. I mean, I get downright giddy because of what they meant to me. Or my son, somebody gave him like this is Punk Kids book, and it's really cool for me to sit there because I want him to kind of know in like that weird obituary way. It's like, well, your daddy's played at CBGB's. Oh, and your daddy knows Stefan, and oh, that's Bill. So it's kind of like neat that I get to sort of share this with my son to learn a little bit about me. It's like, oh, that's my friend Stefan. He's a really sweet dude.
Yeah, you're like, I'm a cool dad. He's like, whatever, dad, you suck. You're
he,
like, you're
he,
5. You can't talk like that.
he knows he's surpassed me long ago in coolness, and listen, they've got to rebel against something, right? I might as well be a total square.
Dude, it's funny. My little sister, she's just 25, and so I gave her a mixed CD when I was, well, how old was she? She was like 14 or 16, and I was like, hey, this is like when CDs were still a thing, and I was like, I made you 3 mixed CDs of all of these bands that, I was like, I'm just being the older brother, giving, and we're 17 years apart, and I was like, this is just music. It's you're probably not going to get it right now. So it's like I always forget that I got to do that, and then years later, she goes, "Yeah, I went to Warp Tour and I got to see Take It Back Sunday, and I was the only one out of my friends going nuts for them." And they were like, "Who's this old band playing now?" And
Arg.
she's like, "But I love them because you gave me that mix CD." And I was like, "Oh my God, I have one life right now. So anytime I do anything." I'll even now, I mean, I'm 42 and she's 25, and I think the math's right there. And I'll just send her a message and be like, "Hey, so I did this thing." She's like, "Oh, that's so cool." I was like, "Yeah, that's right. I'm pretty cool."
Well, I gotta say, I mean, my family was just super supportive, and I had two older brothers, and I just absolutely just two of the most good guys. It's such a positive influence. Like I think there's this kind of myth that musicians and artists and comedians, whatever, they're like broken and this, that, or the other. I had the most supportive parents, and even though you talk about like your dad like that, like you love your dad, you want to be like him. Like my dad, I was going to go the traditional route, just go to like just try to get a scholarship somewhere, and even at like 18, didn't know what was I going to do, how was I going to do art. I just follow the same path, and we checked out this art school in Philly, and he looked at me, and this is like a defining moment as far as like, oh, I just love my dad. And he just looks at me and he goes, this is a guy that's a Vietnam veteran of the Coast Guard and did that, like, what you do, you get out of the military and you work the same job for 30 years, you retire. Nowadays, your resume, if you're working for the same place for 5 years, they're like, what's wrong with him? But he looks at me and he goes, listen, I don't know anything about this stuff, but you've got a gift. If you tell me this is what you want to do, I'll back you. And I just really, always really appreciate how supportive. And my mom and dad were like, my two biggest fans, but my brothers, they exposed me to just as much awesome stuff. And you're playing the part of that, like, you are a cool older brother. And yeah, you guys can probably rib each other, but like, yeah, and just like, I kind of feel like as a dad too, if I can expose my kids to like as much as possible, they could see that there's so many ways to do it and there's so many things you can do. Just try it all. You don't have to do it. Just check it all out because you do have options. Follow your dreams and work hard. But yeah, I love those moments. And my brother Dan, I did some work for Paul McCartney, which was like
Yeah, I see
one of the
this on your
most.
site. It's crazy.
I mean, I feel like it was like the height of compliment because I would be, of course you're working with kind of like the representatives of, but at the end of the day, you're like, and you get this confirmation that like, yeah, Paul, he really likes your stuff and he liked these designs and wants to move forward on this. And yeah, he's a fan. And you're like, Paul, maybe they're stroking my ego, but they're like,
You're like,
Paul McCartney,
what?
Sir Paul McCartney, the Beatles is a fan of mine. And my brother, when Paul McCartney went on tour, he took his daughter, who I don't know if she was maybe 6 or 8. I'm sorry if I don't remember. But it's like my older brother got to take his daughter to see Paul McCartney, like a Beatle who kind of changed music and helped
It's
anyway. And there's his
crazy.
little brother's artwork going all over the world with a Beatle at the merch table. It was really validating to be reached. I was contacted because they saw punk rock stuff that I did and said, we want you. And I said, like, what do you want me to do? Because I just want to be able to say I did this. And they said, we want you to do what you do, but for a Beatle, the biggest Beatle fan. And you're like, wow. So I just kind of look back at this like weird full circle of like all the support my family had given me and all the car rides and playing Nintendo to the Beatles and like kind of like had this weird, very proud of each other and grateful for each other. This really cool wheel of support. So I love that you're kind of doing that with your sister and Lane Meyer and everything else.
Yeah, man. Yeah, when she came to see, I'm gonna touch on this Paul McCartney thing in a second, but she came to the show. Like her and my older sister Mel came, and they sat on the side of the stage and they bought the Landmeyer shirts and they were wearing them and dancing. And at the end, we were done. This was in 2018, and I walked up to him, and my little sister was like, "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen." And my older sister's like crying. She's like, "I'm so proud of you." I was like, I can't not cry right now. This is absolutely the greatest thing ever. Like this is the coolest shit in the world. But okay, real quick though, these Paul McCartney designs are sick as hell, dude.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. These are like, and they're so different. They're so all of them are completely different, and the subtlety of the P and the M with the heart. Like I love super simple, subtle designs like that, but are so big at the same time.
I I really really appreciate it. It was one of those things where just like from the boring professional side of stuff, the merch company or whatever his like tour people had called and said, he's doing a world tour, the height of compliment. Like, we like what you do. Would you do this for him? But it was kind of these things where it's like, we're gonna look at your ideas. If we move forward with one, we'll like for you to sort of like proceed a little bit. We'll pay you for that, and then if it like gets made, then we'll pay you additionally for that. And I just said, to myself, I was like, I want to do a shirt for Paul McCartney. So one of the things that I posted on the website is probably just like this thin sliver, but it's like a fraction of the like literal dozens of different ideas that I was pushing because I was like, surely out of 100, like one will go through. So I just felt like, let me just idea dump and send them everything. And then it was like they proceeded with 5, and you see what you see. And it also, I feel like I want to touch on like being inspired by the artist, whoever it is, whether it's like Plow or Shower with Goats or whatever, or if it's like Paul McCartney and the Beatles. I'm trying to listen to like what's their message, what's their story, who's the audience. I'm trying to do you justice. So I'm not always trying to force my style, but that's definitely my brain working, whether it's like looks like a knife scratched Ferris wheel or a faded spacey play on his nickname. And then thanks for saying that about the the PM Heart because I mean, like, it's the guy that helped write All You Need Is Love, and I just it was like one of those things where you just
Oh,
kind of
that's dope.
out of 100 thumbnails, you kind of thumbnail, and that's the one they run with. And my dad loved to kind of like gently tease me about like, hey, why'd you have to sign your name so big? Because it kind of looks like the way I do PW. So
Oh, that's funny. How the hell did your parents take it when you told them like, dude, so check this out?
they were so proud, and it felt so good and so validating. I mean, they're very proud and they're very supportive. And there's times it just feels good when you can. Uh, I think parents want to not worry about their kids. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Yes, I'm doing okay, and I'm able to like work here or work there, or do this kind of job. But every once in a blue moon, you go, hey, go to the local movie theater by you. You'll see my poster on the marquee. Or hey, turn on Netflix, 1 million impressions of my drawing,
Wait, what
and
was
if you
that
know
one?
where to look. The Bill Murray stories was on,
Oh, oh,
like,
oh.
was like
Okay.
number, yeah, it was on Netflix for a year. And you know how you get the different thumbnails depending, if you're on your whatever, but like, you'd see my drawing. Or same thing with Paul McCartney. It's like, my parents are really cool, and you could be like, hey, check out this. I know you don't know who the Impossibles are, but here's this CD or whatever. But like I think they were just appreciate in New Jersey that I was making friends, that I was involved and all that. And then once in a while, it's not bragging rights. It's just nice to be able to tell your mom, hey, Paul McCartney, the Beatles, well, and they were just over the moon. And same with my brothers, just being able to sort of call them up and just be like, hey, you guys got me into the Beatles, to call my brother Dan specifically with the like, you're the first person I'm going to call and tell this to. You're the biggest Beatles fan that I know. So every once in a while, like if he's late at night and he's had a drink or something, he's watching Hard Day's Night, he'll text me and just be like, I still can't believe you did artwork for a Beatle.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
felt
dude.
really validating, like these terrible choices we've made, Mike, pursuing creative expression. But every once in a while, you can tell when I can tell my mom and dad, like, hey, this is something you can see and enjoy, or that and isn't that neat? And thanks for supporting me, and I love you.
Well, your dad's probably like, well, I guess we made the good decision when I was asking you about this whole art school thing. You're like, hey, remember
Yeah,
that question? Here you go, Paul McCartney
well,
shirt. Boom.
I've promised to support him in the financial style of which he's become accustomed. So I better start those NFTs or something.
Dude, I bet you can. I mean, I'm on your Doodle page, and just like, let's see, where is it? It's all there's always a. It seems like when you do your own thing, there's a little kid having fun and also questioning things as you are like the centerpiece, it seems. So when you are doing stuff for someone else, you're adding your own flair to it and like your mind and how you perceive it. But it seems like the way you perceive yourself is like this little kid just thinking or having fun.
Yeah, and I probably, wouldn't. I mean, this would probably involve an amount of self-reflection. I don't know if I want to do in real time,
That's fine.
but yeah, and I think to add a color to it, it would probably be an air of melancholy most of the time. And
Yeah,
I think
it's definitely
no
there.
matter how cartoonish and happy I sort of see myself at different times, as I go through some of the sketchbooks or other things, there's no denying there's an element of, and I'll say melancholy because I think it's misunderstood from sadness. I think melancholy is a place where I actually kind of enjoy to be. I don't know. I mean, I could be happy as a clam and still listen to a sad song.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, there's an element, and I don't know why it's always defaulted to child. But I guess I have. Like I said, I'm not ready to think about it too hard for the first time now.
Oh, yeah, totally, man. I mean, like I know with the comic that I do, it's very much like, I'm not trying to pull this, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm just trying to compare. It's like I built I have this way of saying whatever's in my mind, so I made a character that is basically like looks like just a dude, like more of like it's like a kid, kind of adult. I don't know, but there's like says very adult things, like just like would still say like, yeah, fuck this shit. But it's like my way of saying whatever I want to say through this character instead of me taking a video of myself every day and saying these one-liners that I do every day. It's like I get away with it because I have this mask in front of me that's this sketch that's I literally draw it on a piece of paper and then take a picture and upload it. But it's like South Park. They can get away with that because it's like four little kids saying this shit, which makes it funny. But the one thing I will say though in the sketches, and I want to talk about the shower with the goats, and I want to talk about Less Than Jake, the Grease album. The one thing about your doodles though is that even in the fun ones, and you can just leave it at this, but even in the fun ones you're having, there's a very somber color scheme on top of it,
Hmm.
which is
That's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sort of a weathering of time, and I don't know if that's the personal work. Yeah, I don't know. For one, I think something that's really brilliant about your proxy character in your webcomic is that you know that it's not just about making it like a kid, because even my influences would have been early on like Calvin Hobbes and
Yeah, yeah,
Peanuts and Charles Schultz
100%.
and that kind of that adultless world. But you've done that thing where the more simple you make it, the more people will relate. And it kind of goes back to something we talked about, like what songs or whatever is like connected to you. What do you relate to? So you've got this really relatable character. But I don't know how to answer your question about the color.
You definitely don't have. I'm just pointing it out that that's just my thing, and I will leave it with you as I will. But lastly, before I jump in though, I think the one with the kid on the dock with the sailboat in the distance, and then the message in a bottle with the rock sinking to the bottom. I think that would be, if you ever thought to do NFTs, I think that would be your first one that you would put up there, because I think that would sell like crazy.
That means the world to me, and that's a very deeply personal piece. And I would rather, if anyone sees it, to interpret it and relate to it, as they will. But yeah, I mean, I that's just one of the yeah, the bottomless wishing well.
Yeah, no, it's a dope piece, and
It's
because I
very
think
it's
you can
very
go there.
it's very pop punk. Thank you.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's talk about this whole Grease thing, because we're about an hour and 45 in, but there's definitely some things I'll talk about still. I never
Sorry.
noticed. Oh no, there's nothing to apologize. I never noticed that the cover was Roger and I guess Chris dancing,
Yeah.
or is
So
that
just to
Vinny? It's a
clarify, so I'm
Vinny and
not.
Roger.
Yeah, I don't want to take any unintentional credit. The cover to Grease is really Var from No Idea, as sort of modeled after the original playbill from Broadway for Greased, and on the other side is a band caricature. So on Discogs that comes a lot. And even like when I framed the LP, I kind of framed my side, but on the other side is a caricature of the band that I did literally in class in like 10th grade. Like I was like literally, and same thing for the shower with goats. Is I distinctly remember being in the cafeteria with a big piece of paper and like colored pencils and watercolors doing shower with goats like in the high school like cafeteria in Basking Ridge.
Okay, so you didn't do the cover. Wait, hold on.
I didn't do, and that's Chris and Roger. So I think if you were to Google Grease, the original
I see it now.
soundtrack, you'll
Yeah.
sort of see what Var from No Idea kind of um, mocked, kind of spoofed. But on the other side of Greased is sort of this alternate cover, and it's got a character of the band.
Yeah, that's 100% you. You could see it as clear as day. Like, you see the eyes too, and like the smile, like that's you.
Yeah, so sorry, I can't take credit for what would be considered the cover, but I still consider it something that I got to work on at the same time I did the Evo Kid. Like I said, 15, 16. It's like it's so weird to me that was 96 or something, and I literally did that in class.
Can people still buy the first shirt? I mean, do you have one of the that first shirt you did for Less Than Jake, or do you have seen it?
Totally. And something came up usually around Christmas time. I'm really just super grateful for the people that reach out to me for like, hey, can you help me with this like gift for like the number one Less Than Jake fan in my life? And I feel awful for when I just am not in a position to. I just can't make the time as much as I wish. But there was a moment where I was like, well, let me look through my box because I've got this like box of all these shirts that I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? Make a quilt, But yeah, I definitely got the original, and it kind of comes down to this sort of a lot of times. Yeah, certainly in high school, I wasn't exactly getting paid, but boy, bands were pretty generous with the merch. And in fact, with Greased, I moved around a bit, so No Idea Records never knew how to get a hold of me. I would just show up to like that Weston show with Less Than Jake at some other VFW hall or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, Peter, what are you doing here? Like, we just saw you in Houston." And you're like, "I'm in Jersey now," and it'd be, "Oh, here, grab a shirt."
Oh
So
wow.
I've got all these original shirts, and I try to make sure that I just ask them, could you please, if my art goes on something, like I'm not trying to mooch, but could I please get a copy of it? But other times I have no problem. Just, they supported me. I'm happy to go like buy. their record also. Or like with Shire with Goats, when he put everything on Spotify. I think I just put on Protege on repeat and like walked away for a week just to try to help, like show some support with the algorithms or whatever.
That's amazing.
So it's like that kind of weird thing where like they supported me. There's got to be something I could do to show support for the scene as well.
Were you at the Shower with the Goats CD release party?
I don't know if it was a CD release party, but I remember one time I saw them and it felt like again, this is all in high school where like some kid named John Janik, he's like the president of A&M Records or something now, but like they'd call me and be like, "Hey, got any new bands we should check out?" And I don't know, I'm just like a dumb kid in the scene. You just kind of name like all these New Jersey pop punk bands, whatever. But with Shot with Goats, there was one show that felt like a Fueled by Ramen show, and it was like Bigwig, Shot with Goats, Supermarket All Stars from Texas that I knew from Houston. Like they've got a tattoo of my artwork on
This
one
is
of
the
their
Firehouse, right?
legs.
The Derby Firehouse?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a firehouse. And in fact, I remember driving by a bunch of like farmland and seeing this checkered cabs for sale, and I just wish I spent my lunch money on it. But it was an awesome show. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a CD release show or not, but I just remember feeling like it was just I had a deep connection and friendship to everybody that was there. Like everybody.
So we played that show, and I think I don't. We definitely played it because I never drove down to Trenton or Bordentown or wherever to or Hightstown.
Bordentown. It was
Bordentown.
Bordentown.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
You
Derby
guys were
Firehouse, man.
awesome.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we. Oh, thank you. We. I remember playing that because I remember Supermarket All Stars. A couple of things about them. One, I saw them playing, and I looked at someone. I was like, I have never seen Slapstick live. I'm like, but I have the latest release, which is the green CD or the green.
Yeah.
And I was like, that guy looks a lot like Brendan. And someone was like, oh yeah, this guy's in love with Brendan. And
I don't
then
think anyone would
disagree.
deny
Oh no,
that
because
Slapstick and their career path, they would eventually become last summer on Drive Through, what really modeled like what Slapstick kind of turned into by way of like just imagine like Broadway's plus Tuesday plus horns, like I don't think anyone would deny their evolution and their love. In fact, before they were Supermarket All Stars, their name was Slap Happy.
no fucking shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
it was like, they wore it on their sleeve, I think. They
Oh, because I mean, we saw, and this is not shitting on the dude at all. This is what I saw was funny. This is me, not, you're obviously not shitting. I'm like, anytime I say something, sometimes I am shitting on people just for fun. No, but this guy, I saw him, and he also had the checkered spots on his hair, like Brendan
Yeah.
did too. And I remember being like, what? I was like, so is this what? I was like, okay, this guy clearly they are ripping off Slapstick. And then years later, we went on tour with Lawrence Arms, and the last tour we did, and I was talking to Brendan. I was like, so one time I was watching a show in Jersey, and this guy looked exactly like you. He's like, oh yeah, that's blah blah blah. He's like, yeah, big fan. That guy calls me or writes me or however his communication like all the fucking time. Really nice guy. Yeah, but he is constantly we're in contact a lot. Then years later, I'm in LA and I talked about the show where I was just talking to Jason Link about this, and I've talked to other people about even Brendan about the Troubadour show in LA where
Yeah.
I was living out there and Lawrence Arms is on tour. So I go to the Troubadour, I see them. I haven't seen them since we left them at the last day of tour, and I was like, yo, you guys you need a place to stay. You can come crash with me. They're like, yeah, that's awesome. And then I don't know how the conversation went on, but it turned out that their merch guy was that guy. So he ended up taking over the merch. And I asked Brendan, I was like, so what happened with Ryan, who was on tour with us? And apparently, that guy was stealing from them, I guess. Not Supermarket All Star
Yeah.
guy, the guy Ryan. That was
Okay.
the gossip. And then I was, and so then like so then that too, I was like, this is so weird. We played a show in Jersey, and I was gonna be like, and I thought you were a giant Brendan ripoff guy, because I was like, I'm definitely not gonna say that. Then recently, just jokingly, I was talking to someone who I'd interviewed throughout the course of the podcast. We were messaging each other, and we talked about Supermarket All Stars. And the person was like, I wonder what happened with that guy. I was like, he's probably sitting outside Brendan's window as we speak.
Aw. You know,
And this
I
is
try
all
to
in fun, but I mean, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, dude, fuck this guy.
no, and I mean, as far as like you want to talk about the bands that you in the Jersey scene, I mean, you mean, I think people's influences were proudly worn on their sleeve, and that's okay because we were all discovering these bands. Like I said, New Jersey Joystick, I knew we all kind of were worshiping at the altar of the Bouncing Souls, Good, the Bad, and the Argyle. And in Houston, when everyone's just starting to get into ska punk, we had our own slapstick. We could see them every month. How cool was that?
The Impossibles.
And I well, the Impossibles was like having your own Weezer. I mean, they were just, I mean, roaring. I mean, they were just so nice and so talented, and like, gosh, those almost like every Impossibles release is phenomenal, and it's been really fun to follow like their growth.
His
But
I just got to cut him for a second. His voice is so unique and it's so
yeah,
catchy. It's like this deep but like high pitch. It's like it meshes together. I don't. It's so weird. When I first heard it, I was like, this guy's voice is awesome and it's so different.
it's funny too because as you become fans or you get to know them on even the smallest levels, like just working with them or whatever, there's lots of bands where you kind of have everybody's collaborations, but you can sort of split it, like Paul or John, Gabe or Rory,
Yeah, yeah.
John, the two Johns, if they might be giants, on and on and on and on, and you start to just kind of gravitate, or you appreciate each person's contributions, and you could kind of guess a little bit, like I wonder who. Like I said before, you kind of gravitate towards certain types of music. You don't necessarily know why, or smarter people than me know why, but I just always felt every time Rory sang, I was just screaming along.
Yeah, I never heard the Impossibles until the stereo came out, and then Heiner from Lane Meyer and then Humble Beginnings and Date the Fair. He was huge into them, and he's like, "Dude, you gotta check this shit out." I was like, "Oh my God, this is Scott Weezer. This is incredible."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just like, yes, please. That was another one in high school. I was sort of like sleeping. I had like a little bedroom or whatever with a draft table in the basement of Basking Ridge, and just one of those like cool phone calls you get where it's like, yeah, if you could just draw this girl for this CD EP, and just another one of those things I just take for granted, all the neat stuff I got to do just for fun, just being a kid. It just all felt very. I didn't never consciously trying to like contribute or be a part of anything. It was just like playing.
What was like what were they trying to convey with her facial expression on that cover?
I think
It's
I
very like
wasn't
kind of like it's almost not insinuating, but it's kind of like
seductive.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
seductive, man. It's kind of like
but I
uh-huh.
didn't.
Here's me
But
in
I
my
didn't have the
Impossible shirt.
skills.
Let's rock.
Yeah, I pretty much. I mean, it's like, I mean, wasn't that the basis for a tremendous amount of songs that we listened to, played, wrote, etc.
Oh, hell
Was
yeah.
just, I don't know about you, but I was a very romantically unrequited person. So I just, as far as that CD goes, I just didn't have the equipment and the skills to properly do like a pinup. But they basically just wanted that girl, that come hither
Uh-huh.
100-yard stare. So thankfully the music's really good. I don't know if the artwork got anybody in, but
Well, another thing I noticed too on the back, you have the character in the circle. So you did all
uh,
that, right?
no, that's this kid. I think his name is. See, I apologize. I'm going to mispronounce it, but Yusuf something or other. And I think he was a really neat guy in California who ended up probably doing some things for, I think,
Yeah.
Asian Man Records.
Yeah, Yusuf
So every once in
Glishan.
a while, though, I would catch like a couple. Oh, there's a couple other. Not competitive at all. I'm sincerely not a competitive person, but it was just like, oh, there's this other name that I keep seeing in the liner notes of all these releases, like this Korean girl 7-inch or whatever on Asian Man. So I think he was somebody else in California that was just doing stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking him up right now because it on the artwork that's on Discogs that has the back on the CD itself. It literally has all the credits.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
yeah, art by you, Eskimo art by Yosef Glushin,
Yeah, I don't want
and
to mispronounce it by accident, but
that's right. I'm completely
but
murdering it because I don't know how to say it.
he's probably got he's probably got his own Discogs page too. I know mine is super incomplete, but I'm just too, I hate to say busy to like submit.
Actually, I think his name has come up because he's Big D in the Kids Table did artwork for this. Well, let's see. I think it is Wheel because I can never tell in Discogs if they did music or if they're doing art. I didn't know that designers had their own pages on here. Did the wait? Okay, this is artwork because he's got like your release together with your dual artwork. Chinky, softball, skank and pickle. Damn, there's a ton of stuff.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I always say stuff like, "Oh, credit's overrated and awards are meaningless and this, that, or the other." But every once in a while, like when my name gets dropped of something, or like Discogs, I'm like, it's not a complete picture of who I am, or it's not the most accurate thing. Like there's a little bit of confusion why it would show up on my page. I really appreciate the people that go out of their way to include things and not to constantly talk about less than Jake. But I remember a period where with the Evo Kid and my name was underneath, and it was like Capitol Records for Losing Streak was going to print out a bunch of posters and put them on every record store, Barnes and Nobles, wherever compact discs were sold. And it was the Evo Kid, and Vinny had made it a point, like, keep his name under it. Again, my proud brothers were like, dude, it's awesome. I'm in a major retail store, and your name is right above the Capitol Records logo. And I really always appreciated that. I'm just piggybacking off of a band's greatness, but I really, really, really appreciate when people take the time to just say, yeah, Peter did this logo. There's a million Springman things on there. I didn't do hardly any of the artwork, but because I did their logo, they're really gracious enough to just keep crediting me. And I got a question for you, my friend.
Sure.
I never appreciated that you were on Two Hep Records and you knew Bartley.
We knew Andrew Courtney, or Chutney as we call him.
Oh yeah, all right, I get it now. All right.
Yeah, he. I saw that too because I was looking up all the stuff you've done, and it was like Two Hep Records. So what did? Yeah, I don't think we met. I don't think we met Bartley. I think we only knew Andrew, and I didn't even know. Looking back, I probably obviously knew then, but now I was like, I didn't even know he had a business partner.
It's so funny because yeah, same kind of vice versa with Andrew. Like I guess I knew. I mean, I knew him and I was a fan and all, but Bartley was friend of friends, and then he was my friend. He's been at my parents' house. I've seen him in Texas. I've seen him in Jersey, and just all the time he would just call and be like, "Do you want to do a sticker? Do you want to like draw this record, that record?" There's just a time I was just doing again high school. I'm just doodling and photocopying and putting it in the mail, all
But
this
that's how it was
stuff,
done,
and
man. I mean, that's like, think about it. We were all, the whole world at that time was high school kids trying to put things out. So if you knew a sick designer, you would hit them up and say, "Oh man, I saw you did this. That gave you credit. I like your style."
yeah, one of my favorite little niche things as like a designer standpoint, or like even like you want to say talk about production is that whole era where it was, I don't know, like early aughts hardcore, whatever. But basically, the aesthetic was okay, you get a job at Kinko's, and in the middle of the night, just rob them blind, and you're going to do the 7-inch inserts, and you're going to slice the envelopes to 7 by 7, and then we're going to take these rubber stamps and stamp the blank labels. And you just, again, like you talk about, I'm compelled to create. These were punks that by any means necessary were going to put their music out on a $2 7-inch in a brown paper envelope.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I, I, I am on. Oh, I don't know how to phrase this. I'm convinced that the punk scene is the thing that took down Kinko's. Because every interview, it's people going, "We just would go," like Chris from Less Than Jake. He goes, "I'd have 4,000 copies of a flyer, walk up, and they're like, 'How much is that?' He's like, 40." They're like, "All right, that'd be 40 cents." He's like, "Great." Everyone, the punk scene robbed Kinko's blind, like legit.
It's kind of funny, but you talk about the ethics of the scene kind of carried on to our adult lives. And I think it was even a niece of mine was needed to look for a job and just wasn't sure what to do. And I just kind of thought, the worst case scenario is if you can't find like the right fit or the good people or a good place, like find a place where you can get a perk, whether that's a free pizza or health benefits or whatever. Like trying to like pick a spot where you like the perk. But all I kept thinking about was like Kinko's when you needed, like a show flyer. You just kind of work there and then, kind of,
Just rip them the hell off. I didn't.
yeah.
Man, growing up though, I remember when Steve, well, Steve likes to say Steve Neurotic. I always knew him as Steve with Goats. He, so the CD release party that they did, we played, and that's right before we became Lanemeyer. We were Congress of Cow for about a couple shows.
I did see that. I know I
Okay,
saw that
that
because
was,
I felt really guilty talking to you because I kind of felt like I didn't sincerely. I know I've seen you, and I do sincerely. I loved you guys every time you were on a comp, but I didn't have like a real vivid connection to you, but I know I saw Congress of Cow as well.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, who cares, man? Someone be like, I didn't see your band back in the day. It's like that's fine. I don't, it's like
No, I
you
just
never
wish
know.
I had, yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, like so I just did an interview. It's so the thing I love these interviews because there's so many dots that get connected. Like I just did an interview with Jeff DiMaselli, who was our drummer in Congress of Cal, and we talk about how we split, and I forgot about it. But right at that point, that's how we found Sean, and I interviewed Sean about Lane Meyer, and then I interviewed Alan about Lane Meyer. So like all of these conversations are out there, and they're really long. But for me, it's great. It's like it's my life, so I'm interested. Other people be like, I don't really care. But it was so cool because like you listen to that, you listen to why Jeff left and how that all fell apart, and then how we got Sean the band, and we got Alan, and then through all this we played that, and then I talked to Steve about a Shower with Goats, and we played that show, and we went there. That was like the first show. I think it might have been the first show as us as Congress of Cow. So we remember we played that show,
Wow.
and then we left and went to North Wayne Firehouse and played right afterwards. And as Congress, so this is right before we
Really?
became Lamar. Yeah, and but I remember being at that show, and I'm talking to Avi, I think from Springman, or Steve from
Avi
Stillman.
Ehrlich, yeah.
Yeah, it was like either Avi was at the show or Steve was telling me about it. But they go, and Steve was like, "Yeah, dude, we got the dude who designs for Less Than Jake to do our artwork, our cover artwork." And I was like, that's fucking crazy, man. I was so blown away. I was like, that's not how the fuck did you get this guy? This is great. I had no clue that you grew up in Jersey.
I was a kid in Jersey High School at the time, and it was one of those things where my parents knew that moving was hard on every kid, depending on what year it was that we moved, but we all tried to put our best foot forward, right? So when I moved from Texas to Jersey, again, at the time, you're so traumatic and you're ripped. But a couple things I had going for me in Texas, you basically could get a provisional driver's license when you're like 14. And but Jersey, it was like 16, 17. I don't know what it was, but I could
17.
drive.
17.
Okay,
Yeah,
17.
something like
So,
that.
but I had a legit Texas license. So my mom every once in a while said, "Listen, take the car today." I didn't really appreciate at the time what she was doing, but I was like, "Who is this kid driving the car?" kind of thing. So, and the other thing was really being lax about just if I was finding friends and going out, it wasn't a big deal that I could go to shows. Sometimes my dad would drive me, and bless him, he would wait outside. If he just felt like Maxwell's was a little sketchy in 1996,
Yeah, it
then
was.
he was like, again, I can't thank them enough for being that cool and supportive about me just going to see the NJPP scene. Anyway, I went to, and I'm sure maybe you were there. It was like Less Than Jake with Weston, the Chucky era. Me and Roger were basically next to each other. Like for the Weston show, I did like one of my very few crowd surfing kind of thing by way of Roger from Less Than Jake. It's like a great
What?
memory. Yeah, it's so funny because it was like both of us were fans, but it's like, it's not, it was Roger, like everyone was a fan of Weston, but it was just this cool, funny memory. And Chris couldn't believe it was like, what are you, I'm effing Peter Wonsowski. What are you doing in Jersey? But,
Wait, where
but
was
I,
this?
you know,
Where did that happen? What was the
it
venue?
was like January 97. I couldn't tell you. Gray Wood. I mean, like,
But it
I
was the
hate to
Legion
be
Hall.
probably. Oh, yeah. Dude, this was not a club.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not a club. This
Oh,
was like
okay.
Weston, Less Than Jake, and probably some other really cool people that I'm just forgetting. But if there was a backstage, it just felt like your mom's kitchen. Vinny and others and Steve, neurotic from Shower with Goats. And at the time, I think, again, Feel by Wrong was starting by way of Vinny. And I had this Chinese takeout box with a cassette tape with like the Hippos and Boxer or Boxcar, sorry, and the Supermarket All Stars and Shower with Goats and Protege. And so I knew Protege, and I know Steve's got so much output of music that he's proud of, but Protege was a song that really still resonates with me. And I think it's a great seminal, like if you were to put out like this ultimate New Jersey punk, this was the scene like compilation, like that would be what I would submit for Shower with Goats.
Which one was
So
that? Which one was that again? I know there's a song that I loved, and this is probably the damn song that you're saying that I'm forgetting. But what was like the
oh yeah,
chorus?
yeah. I don't know if I want to be off the record, so I don't have to hear my singing voice. Like.
like every child.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave all that stuff. Yeah, so you don't have to. Even though you sounded great, your voice sounded fantastic. So I found the flyer for the Shower with Goats CD release party. It was Boxcar Humble, Speed Bump, Mother Mania, Conquers Cow, Your Mama Love Us, even though they spelled Your Mama Love Us wrong, and more. So this was December 20th, 1997. They never put years on the flyer, so I'm fascinated that they did this. It was 6 p.m. at in East Windsor, New Jersey. Yeah, at a fire hall in East Windsor. Yeah, I'm trying to find the Less Than Jake one.
When you said Bordentown, I was sure something. Bordentown sounded really right to me.
That was the other show with Supermarket All Stars. I remember that very vividly
Oh,
because
sorry.
that was a huge venue. I mean, from what I remember, and now I bet if I went to it now, if I was living in Jersey, I was talking about this a couple times, I would legit. It's funny that I do this podcast down here because I'm in North Carolina. I'm 15 or 9 hours from Jersey, but this entire time I've done this podcast down here. But if I lived in Jersey, I seriously would have probably really expanded more on this podcast and done more in-person interviews when I talked to like Jersey people and like maybe videotaped it. But I would definitely have been going and revisiting all of these Legion halls and firehouses and just taking photos outside and stuff like that. But I
I
am
wonder if
too
you would
far
have had
away.
different, slightly different interactions with people, or would it be really something to sort of be in the space?
Oh, like if it was like in person doing the interviews?
Yeah, yeah, possibly. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are still there.
Oh, yeah, there's so many people that are still there. Actually, there's a bunch of people that are down here, like Brian from Plow. He's just up the road in Chapel Hill.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've a tremendous amount of love for all of Plow United, and you want to talk about a band where uh, just awesome people. That's crazy. I didn't realize you were in North Carolina, but yeah, Brian's there too.
Yeah, I did an interview with Eric from Creep Records, and he texted me, and he's like, this is after the interview. He's like, yo, would you want to interview Plow? I was like, fuck yeah. And he goes, well, here's Brian's number. Just text him. I was like, oh, I don't know, dude. I've never talked to him. And I was like, I talked to him maybe once, and we didn't know each other. I knew who he was, and he didn't know who I was. He's like, I just text him. So I text him. He's like, yeah, okay. And I loved it. And now since then, he'll like text me sometimes, like, "Oh, dude, I listened to this interview. Like, that's so funny." Or like, or that's
Neat.
yeah. Oh, he'll like just text me. I'm like, "This is so cool." So he's come to Raleigh a couple times. We met up, and like, but it's so funny because I'll just like fuck with him on Instagram, and he'll be like, I was like, "Yep, you love it." He's like, "No, I don't." I just texted him before we got on. We did the interview because basically it's pretty much 100% open up down here, which is crazy.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I was at a hockey game last night, which was mass mandatory, but the place was packed, and it was a playoff game with the Canes and the Panthers, and it was insanity.
Some people are really hungry for whether it's a punk rock show or a sporting event or just grabbing a burger and a beer. I
I
mean, they
mean,
definitely, not everyone, but some people, like, they're ready for that communal experience.
I have honestly, man, the time like end of April or beginning of May last year, a bunch of my friends down here, we were like, okay, enough of this shit. We're not going out because there's no place to go, but we went to this park that's down the street, literally like a mile from where I live, and we're in downtown, and we all would sit in this giant circle and just bring beers, and just sit there for hours and just hang out. So I never had that isolated feeling. And as soon as bars and restaurants were open, I mean, I was out the door. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm out. I mean, I would stay my distance and wear a mask and all that stuff. But I have been just slowly progressing in this whole thing. So when last night happened, sitting next to my buddy, he's like, dude, do you realize what's happening right now? Like, we're in an arena that's packed with people. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. I didn't even stop to think about this. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm in Texas here where it's a little bit, let's just say 50-50. Not everyone shares the same opinions or values or concerns.
Yeah.
But now that we're all vaccinated, there's kind of this humorous, awkward thing where you're like, do I wear the mask just to let people know that I'm not one of those people that won't wear a mask
Uh-huh. Yep.
because they're inconsiderate clods? Or do I just take my right as a vaccinated person and do away with the tyranny of masks or whatever? But it's kind of funny. Can't judge a book by its cover. I'm really pleased with how many people did take it seriously or just admitted, like I did, which is I don't know what I don't know. So the least I can do is just, it's not just about me. It's like I'm trying not to give this to my older parents or my two babies, or I don't even know if that's possible, you know what I mean? But it's just like everything else. Everybody who purports to be a armchair expert. It's like, go away.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I'll go out and I'll wear it. Like last week, they officially just said that you don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated. I was like, oh, cool. A, I mean, as everyone says, like, how the hell do you even know? But the other one is, so we were in some bars and the bartenders weren't wearing them. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
And I was like, my friend, she just came in from Massachusetts. She was visiting for the weekend, and I was like, welcome to North Carolina, where in 1.5 hours you went from being completely opposite to completely opposite. Like
yeah.
it's crazy. And but it's like, yeah, but I mean I still carry my mask if I walk into a place and they're like, we wear masks. I was like, hey, that's cool. I'm like, I'm not gonna die wearing a mask. I mean, before I was back, it's like I probably wouldn't have died anyway, but I was like, I didn't want to get this fucking thing. So I also wore it sometimes when I was out and being like, I'm also wearing this right now because I don't want to get it. And I actually didn't. I'm going to talk about this whole time, but I actually didn't get it because me and my buddy my buddy was with someone who had COVID at the time, didn't know. They both were just wearing masks at the bar. And then the next day, me and him hung out without masks on. And then the next day, he's like, yo, blah, 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 got COVID. You should go get tested because we hung out yesterday. But in my defense was that, okay, well, we both had masks on, so we both didn't get it. And then I told a friend of mine, and she was like, well, maybe you had antibodies. I was like, oh my God. It's just like, you can't fucking win. It's just like, maybe you just can't get it or whatever. It was like, all right, well, I just kind of believe that we both, since you guys both had masks on, that saved me from getting it, which seems, logical, but
I mean, life is fragile and it's fickle, and who knows? I could only suppose, but I never know. I don't know. Live experiences were kind of different for me because I kind of went to fewer and fewer living in New York because in New Jersey, you're kind of talking about how in New Jersey you had like no veil, no stage, everything was this communal. But I remember kind of feeling like in New York, everyone was this band that only like two people would go see in New Jersey, along with like the band's girlfriends. Suddenly now in New York, it was like packed to the gills, and I'm shoved against the back wall, and I just asking myself, why didn't I just put the record on at home, kind of thing. So I moved to Texas, and then it was like COVID, boom. So even though we're isolated on an acre, I just have had no opportunity to get to know where I live. Plus all the
interesting.
other stresses of everything else. I'm just trying to, other life things I won't get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting now that it's sort of opening up, and I wonder, okay, like I would like to experience the live music and get to know the community and maybe do some posters for some venues. Or there's one of the very few vinyl pressing plants is 30 minutes from where I live. Like I kind of want to just get
Oh
like any
man.
job there. I mean, that'd be like Wonka world again for me. It's like I'll do it for free, just let me in. Let me just go in and I'll just pack some records for fun for 2 hours.
Oh man, that'd be so crazy. That'd be so dope.
Yeah.
Um, actually, so okay, kind of like sticking with that because I'm on your site and the Plow United vinyl is just staring me in the face right now, and you said vinyl. How did you get that gig?
Again, my good friend Vinny from Less Than Jake, he had this great label, Paper and Plastic, and one of the things he really let me run with, in addition to he's just really good about kind of guiding artists in different ways and collaborating, and he's just super great guy. I was really his de facto designer for a lot of projects, and he always said, you can always say no, and I'm still going to ask you the next time something comes up. And it got to be this big step for me, I'll say professionally, because before, if a band wanted artwork, I was just handing them a square of art and like, you guys slap the logo wherever, put on another artist's cartoon, like I don't care, whatever. Like here's the square of art, and like go with God kind of thing. So, but for Vinny, when I moved from Philly to New York, he was like, I was doing the front, the back, the type, the hand drawn stuff. He was even awesome about, he had a great logo for Paper and Plastic, but he always let me hand draw it differently every time based on the style of whatever the artwork was, even if it was all photography based or whatever. So as much as I think it's so funny when you interview Plow United, to me, they're like a seminal Jersey band without having anything to do with Jersey, because I feel like if you were anywhere near Delaware or Pennsylvania, or I thought Jersey for a chunk of time, like you absolutely saw Plow. And he was doing their retrospective. It was kind of like a discography, and they had photography, and it was a chance for me to do something that was like not illustration based, just to really, again, I was a fan of theirs, And I just got to absorb like a whole body of work of their music and just kind of do my thing. And what was really validating was they played a show at like the Knitting Factory or whatever, and maybe Brooklyn or something. And I went to go see him. Oh, I know what it was. They played the Chris Gethard show,
Yes.
before it was on like TBS or whatever. And I take me and my at the time fiance, or maybe we were married by then. But we went to that Chris Gethard taping, and that's when I met them, and it was just one of those things where like Plow just ripped into this incredible set like they always do. And I brought my paper and plastic shirt. I was wearing it, and I was just like, "Hey, my name's Peter Wonsowski." And again, I mean, and I to this day, like three of the sweetest, nicest people ever. And when I talked to Joel, who I did some work for his great band, Code of the Jaguar, recently, Joel said to me, I hope this doesn't offend anybody or whatever, but maybe it's just being nice. But he said, your work on that retrospective is like my favorite cover of anything Plow. And it just meant the world to me that,
That's
again,
dope.
like you took our music and they don't art direct either. They're very like, hey, like you do your thing. I don't want to art direct. We'll tell you what we like and what we don't like. And it's very collaborative and conversational. But it was such a rewarding thing for me because I love Plow. And it just turned out that, yes, sometimes you can meet, I don't want to say your idols, but like they are wonderful people. And that you get this validation where somebody from the band says, just like, I really love it, to the point where when they came together later for three, and I just got to say, anyone listening, like give Plow United's three a listen as soon as possible. It is one of like the best records I've been a part of. It's so good musically. It was recorded by one of the members of the Bouncing Souls at his studio. All the songs are as great as anything they've ever done, but also like as grown-ups. Because sometimes like we talk about reunions and cash grabs and coming back and like oof, or they come
Yeah.
back and they're called a different name and it's like just go back to the garage, grandpa, or whatever. But no, the songs on three, I'm like screaming along because, and I don't know if it's like this for you, like I want to do good work with awesome people. I don't always sincerely like love the music, but I love how passionate they are about it and I want to work with them. But I won't pretend that I go and listen to everyone that I work with normally, like after the fact. But Plow United's three, I mean, that is an incredible record. And that one was one where it was another case of like, here's 100 ideas. And it just sort of like kind of kept moving and we kept nudging it. And we kind of had this like, I think jazz and punk has a lot of similarities in attitude and open-mindedness at best. So we kind of did something that was part like kind of like punk and a little bit jazz and a little bit vintage and a little bit like old block printmaking, and this is another one where I'm taking like several textures and prints and scrawls and carvings and scrapings and I'm putting it together on the computer. And I don't know if it's anybody's favorite thing, but it's like I'm really proud of it. It was very collaborative and I'm so happy to be associated with such a great record musically. And when they played Brooklyn, I remember saying like, listen, if I don't see you guys, it's only because my firstborn is about to be born at any minute. And they made a little onesie with the artwork
Oh my
just for
God.
me. I mean, they're just the nicest,
That's
most
so
awesome
sweet.
people. And there were other opportunities back to the whole like giving back thing. There were opportunities where they were making hoodies that were going to benefit different people that were, being marginalized and in danger of, just being very vulnerable groups of people. So it's another example of like they were still doing passion projects and giving back. So I couldn't be more proud to be anything having to do with them.
It's super subtle, but the three that's carved into the top of the cover, I just
Yeah.
noticed that.
Yeah, it's another one where I'm looking at the 12-inch and it holds up better when it's like a foot large.
Yeah, but it's like, and there's also the threes that are bleeding down into the word three. But I just caught that's great. That's so funny. I mean, it's obviously, I mean, the back you have it there where it's like it's their photos are in it, and yeah, I just caught that. That's hilarious.
That was an example of just listening to the music and the lyrics and they just wanted something that was, I mean, there's one of the songs and I think I even quoted it on the website, but it's like elegant and ugly and perfect and wrong. They just wanted something very austere and I just try to match them. And like I said, I don't know if, and I also was referencing, I might have done that record when I was suddenly like a married father to be, but what I was drawing on is if you Google probably like the stickers from when I was 15 in the late 90s, they're basically these like half black, half white plows written one
Yep.
way and United's in the negative. So I was kind of trying to like do that's one of those, Easter eggs that probably no one cares about but me. But it's like kind of a nod to that, the way that every sticker, every car or lighter or whatever from Plow that I remember was this like half and half rectangle.
I legit wrote down in my notes. I mean, I basically just kind of run with it and have browser windows open in front of me and just let it go where it's going to go. But I wrote down, did you ever sneak any Easter eggs in the artwork you've done? What else, like, what else have you done where there's like a thing there that either people know about or like no one's ever known about it and you're actually ready to come out and be like, hey, by the way, this is this.
Well, the first one I would think about is silver linings. There's a lot. There was a lot that was going on in the world, and there was a lot going on in my life. So again, I don't know. I couldn't bake a cake without putting myself into it in some way, but I don't want to touch on all the elements. I think that's for somebody to kind of get lost in with the record. But I will say that one of the only silver linings in my life at the time was being a dad. So there's a scribble that divides the top half from the middle half. And on one of the sheets of paper, I asked my son, do some scribble scrabble, And so I scanned a bunch of them in. So that's kind of snuck in there a little bit.
Oh wait, is that the one that goes in the top left corner, the bottom left corner, the top right corner?
No, that's the thing. That one was all me, and that's the one that's me, and that's printed in silver, but like it's sort of like a horizontal. It divides the horizon, and you would never see it if I pointed it out to you, but it just is a very thin line. So that's one kind of thing. That's probably not a super fun story,
That's
but
cool.
and
No,
the shot with goats one, because I knew them by way of Less Than Jake, and I just always felt like they kind of had a friendship. I thought Steve asked me to make Less Than Jake the security for that CD. And then there's one that I really loved that's Buddy from Less Than Jake and Jake Crown, who's like a really great singer songwriter. If that's not like a negative thing to call anybody, I don't know why. But they've got this great side project called the Coffee Project, and they did a record called Moved On. And I wish I could change some things about like basically everything that I've ever worked on. Like you can't get hung up on that. But the inside of the gatefold has some really great artwork. And it's one of these projects I just adored working on, because it's like my old friend from Less Than Jake calls me up, and it's Buddy, and he goes, basically we want Dr. Seuss meets Peter Wonsowski. And I'm like, what a fun job, like, yes. So it's kind of this very like all my Dr. Seuss influences got to pour out there. And in the inside of this gatefold is this bananas crowd scene. And it's just like full of characters from other records I've worked on with them to people that I knew in life that loved them. And Vinny from Less Than Jake's in there and stuff like that. So
wait, which one was this for? Which one was
it
that
was
for?
called the Coffee Project, and the record was called Moved On. I don't know if I've got any cool, fun Easter eggs beyond any of that, but I really do feel like I could probably tell you about everything that I've ever worked on. And, this is why I did that. This slip mat, references their original artist, Jason Armadillo, and stuff like that. Everything really is purposeful, even if it's fast and kind of hasty. I had a thought about it.
So in Steve's interview, I think he mentioned, I believe this is a while ago, but I believe he did say he was like, yeah, man, there's this Easter egg because we talked about the cover, the artwork for the cover. We talked about you,
Yeah.
and he's like, I think he told me that whole Less Than Jake thing in the background. I was like, I was like, son of a bitch. I have it up in front of me right now, and I was like, son of a bitch, that's right. So in the bottom right though, there's a little pamphlet piece of paper under someone's foot. Does that say Pez?
I think it was supposed to say SWG for Shower with Goats, but as I look at it now, there's one that's clearly SWG and one that kind of looks like Pez.
Yeah.
And there's lots. That's like, I just love getting to do detailed stuff, and I loved getting to do that for Shower with Goats because there's the goat in
The top right
that
corner.
I drawn on their T-shirts and stuff and tattoos, and same with the punk The punk guy on the far left of the blue mohawk, I think, is wearing a Shower with Goats, shirt and SWG patch. And I
Yep.
mean, I think they were all people that I sort of probably subconsciously, girls I had crushes on at shows and members of other bands, and I think the drummer of MUC30 might have red dreads back there. And
Oh, that's
I think
crazy.
different people I knew from high school or the scene or whatever, I'd kind of sneak in there. But
Okay, here's one more thing. With that though, the did you just supply the drawing and then like the font and everything was done by a graphic designer or?
yeah, that's part of that, everything in high school that I sort of did, and even somewhat in college. I would draw this stuff on a big piece of paper and put it in a big old envelope and send it to Parts Unknown, whether it was Fueled by Ramen, 2Hep, Less Than Jake, whomever. And what they did with it, I don't know. So the font and all that stuff, that would have been, I don't know if that would have been like Steve or Avi or somebody else, but somebody else did all that. But later on, and now currently in my life, like if I can get my hands on every element, I want to have that kind of consistency.
Oh
Plus, selfishly,
yeah.
I just love knowing that I did 100% of a record. Even I'm looking at some of them and I just feel like, oh, I just failed placing that title, just absolute failed it. That layout or whatever. But I'm my hand is in it, and I'm glad that you can see my hand. There's other records where I've hand done their lyrics, and I've iced my wrist down, after like handwriting sessions. But we talk about that work is so proud. Look at all this work I put into this thing, and it's just it's really fun element that I did not use a font. That I love your band so much that I wanted to make sure that you got something that could not duplicate, could not reproduce. It's 100% yours.
Yeah, the only thing that would drive me nuts now as a graphic designer, and I just leave things as they are, but I'm just going to point this out, like the purple color for Just Another Day, like the red and the yellow on the top makes sense, and just like the purple for Just Another Day, I'm just like, oh man, that doesn't pop.
Every once in a while, I'll do some art and I just go, I have no idea how we're going to fit. I mean, I just wouldn't know how else to solve. You try different things, but
Yeah,
I definitely know, and you could probably relate as a designer. There's those times when you're like, I need to walk away or get a third opinion because
it's like there's no
I've
way to
done
fit
this
this
thing,
in
but I
here.
haven't really thought about where the title's going to go.
I would have
And
put
it's
it.
clear.
I would have put it right in the spacing of underneath shower, like between the end of the H and the almost the middle of the R, and had it like right there in that white wall
I
space.
I wish I knew earlier on also that your album title did not need to be the same size as the band name, and that you could convince other bands it's like it's okay, like we can make the title a little bit smaller than the band name, and like
Yeah,
we'll get it
yeah.
all on there and it'll be totally cool. Because I look, then I do something because I just, I don't know, hindsight and all that.
Oh,
But
100%. It's funny too because I say that when people like will say they'll comment on my YouTube channel for the podcast like, I wish you would do this. I was like, I'm not doing any of that. Fuck you.
start your own label.
It's done. It's up. I'm not changing anything. But
No,
but
for sure. And
apparently
like I
I can go
said,
off and start nitpicking things because that makes sense.
well, that's the thing, and I have to know as an artist when to just stop it and walk away. Because when I was doing pencils and watercolors primarily, I would want to be the kind of artist that I liked, but I'm not. I think Jay from Joystick had a really great moment in that interview where he said, like, yeah, we all liked those bands, but I couldn't play that kind of part. I could only write what I wrote, and it was inside of me, and I have my talent, and that's how I kind of feel as an artist, where yeah, I look at all kinds of art and music and oh boy, if I could just magically make that and I could work towards that. But at the end of the day, I know that I'll overwork it, I'll ruin it. And it's more true to the amount of like punk rock music that I work with if I just like do it the same day and then just pencils down, walk away before I kill it.
So what are your thoughts on? I'm gonna wrap this up soon, but see, because you did the pinball family comp,
Yeah.
and I think I remember. I know in these interviews people have mentioned things, and later on I forget them because I don't know why. It maybe months or a year, but I feel that we have said that you did do the art for this.
I did, and that's like another one where I mean, I just was so prolific that some of that's like a blip, and I wish I had more of a story to tell you other than what everyone will tell you, and that's Jay Turon is a special person among special people. He was such a personality. I mean, he almost like just not cartoonish, but it's as if he just stepped out of another reality, and he was so infectious with his enthusiasm and his support, and you just got swept up by his love of the scene. And the name of his comp says it all. It's like he looked at it as the pinball family tree, and if none of us saw it at the time, like being in New Jersey, like whether it was Jay that was kind to me at the halls of high school or the people at the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, it's like everyone was just a big supportive bunch of pals.
I think that was the first time I have recognized this thought. Um, I remember Jay would be the kind of person that I felt if you went with him, you felt like things were going to be okay.
Hmm. Maybe, and I see his support, you know what I mean, on the different Facebook groups. So I know he's kind of like there, you know, and I just hope he knows how appreciated that was and that love. I don't know about the guiding. Maybe we were all just like we joked about our parents or whomever. It's like, or the bands that we saw as kids. It's like maybe everyone was winging it, but there was something about Jay that I trusted.
Exact. That's my point. It's like it's not about. I mean, the music thing is one thing, but I felt like in general, if he was like, "Yo, we're gonna go to this thing," and I didn't really like everyone in South Jersey or Central Jersey, who hung out with him. Like they all would, you guys would all go off and hang out, and like we would kind of break off and go back up north. But I felt that if he was there with this gigantic car and was like, hey, we're gonna go do this thing, I felt like he was the kind of guy that if he said that, I would have been like, oh, I'm sure this is fine. With other
Yeah.
people, I've been like, I don't think this is a good idea. But with Jay, I'd be like, yeah, I trust you. I'm sure it'll be
It's
fine.
funny, and I don't know if that was his enthusiasm or again his support, but it never. He could have been. I don't even know how old he was from my perspective as a 16-year-old, but he was there. He was supportive. He was hilarious. I don't know if that ever comes across, but he was a hilarious guy, and I don't think I've heard a bad story about him.
Yeah, no one's ever spoken poorly about him at all. Is he? He's the top left of the tree, though, right? Hanging there.
I would have to look. It's likely, but I think that one was kind of. I don't mean to say it was like a shallow anything, but I think there was sort of this. Can we represent a couple corners of our musical universe? Because there was such a great variety of sounds within that New Jersey niche. I'd really have to look at that one.
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up the fact that like out of the whole thing, you have a kid in there who's black, and I was like thinking what a great thing that is that you actually added diversity in the artwork from back then because like I talked to Scotty from Strider and he even pointed it out. He was like, "Yeah, man, I felt like a lot of times it felt a little uncomfortable sometimes because I was like literally the only black kid in a lot of these shows who liked punk rock, so it was a little bit off." I didn't know how to go in that direction with what he was saying because I was like, I don't know how to make this. I don't know how to open up on that when right now things are so explosive.
It's brutally tense, and you're talking to somebody who lived in Harlem from 2008, 2009 for like 10 years. I'll tell you from my dad's perspective, something that I didn't understand as I was going through it was, everybody kind of self-segregates whether they want to or not. And I think that's what makes an inclusive scene so important. But people in New York think that everything in Texas is one way and vice versa. People in Texas think whatever. But what I didn't appreciate in Houston was it's the fourth largest city in the US, and it is mad diverse. And I never realized this, but when I was 15 in Houston and I see pictures of my birthday party, there are so many different nationalities. That photo where everybody's arm in arm and making funny faces and all that. And I didn't get that. I didn't appreciate. I didn't. You just didn't consciously think of that thing. But it's like there's so many different races and nationalities and places where people and their parents are from. And then I moved to Jersey. And I was uncomfortable and I couldn't articulate it. My dad was really the one that was just, I mean, he just kind of said, like, you've always just been that way. And to be frank, New Jersey, my experience was predominantly 99%, like, I don't know, white Christian. Nothing wrong with that or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, that's all there was. And I went from like not a melting pot, but like a mixed salad to, of just all the stuff that I never was thinking about. To now all of a sudden it's like boom, I got dropped at 16 into this like homogenous, environment. So that was kind of always kind of weird to me. And then to Philly, more diverse, and New York, I don't have to tell you. I think that was something that was unconscious for me, But wow, that's something I never would have thought about on the pinball family tree. And I really appreciate you saying that. But that's my experiences. Houston was super diverse. New Jersey was not diverse. It just was what it was. And it was uncomfortable in a way that I couldn't understand, let alone the fact that what did I have to, I don't know. It was just, I was in two totally different environments and I didn't think about it. But
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it would have stood out to me so much if I wasn't looking at this in today's climate. Like I think back in the day, I just saw it as like, yeah, this is the scene, and now it's so much, oh wow, was it the scene?
well, I'll say one thing, and that's given today's current climate, I got to bring up, thank you, the scene, or thank you, punk rock, for reinforcing values not to be racist or sexist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. Because for me, music shared so many perspectives with the scene, and that kind of like grew my heart like the Grinch or whatever, right? Like you talk about when I hear people who are racist or xenophobic or whatever, and I just think, wow, how lucky I am to have had so many more experiences than this person. And even though a huge part of like my knee-jerk punk rock moral ethos today is just reject all hierarchy, reject all authority, imagine an absurd. But I think whether you're like Paul McCartney or Curtis Mayfield or Lane Meyer, like when you boil it all down, the distilled message at the end of the day seems to be love. Even if you're like the angriest hardcore band on the planet, like I tell my wife, like if I'm cynical, it's because of a disappointment or a heartache. But all this niche music we've been talking about, all this frivolous cartooning I do, it all comes from a place of love. With New Jersey, and when we talk about this was the scene, if somebody shared a song for me, or if you welcomed somebody into your circle at any show, you did a nice thing. And it's really easy to make fun of nice things, and it's way too easy for a scene to be hard. So I always just kind of felt like down with gatekeepers and tastemakers, down with whoever or whatever you think is cool, down with cruelty because there's no shortage, but up with kindness and up with love, up the punks.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Sorry.
No, it's great, dude. So one more question
It's
for,
super corny and I apologize. I just feel like, as I'm sort of like, you're forcing me to think about things, that's what I would kind of boil it down to.
yeah, that's your answer. That's a great answer. What are your thoughts on, before I wrap this up, what are your thoughts on Jay from Pinball not wanting to ever do an interview on this? Do you think yeah, like why do you think he won't? Do you think he should?
Selfishly, I would just want Jay to know that, man, you were like really appreciated and loved. There are artists that I've grown to love that are almost anonymous that I've kind of taken a mild cue from, where I've kind of distilled my autograph into like an Al Hirschfeld little secret symbol. If you can find a PW exclamation mark, great. There's amazing people who do screen printed posters like Aaron Horkey, where I think like there's no photo of Pusshead or anything. Like you'll never find a photo of this person, and I kind of like that. I kind of like, everybody was talking about Daft Punk for breaking up. Like there's no photos of these two robots. And just like your webcomic, when you sort of distill something simple, there's this something, it's more relatable. The more simple it is, the more people can take meaning from or find themselves in, right? And
Yeah.
I don't mean to confuse or skirt around the issue of Jay, because I don't want to project myself on him or his words, but you've got this amazing podcast, Mike, and I feel like it's really cool to be able to revisit it and dissect it. But if I ever found out that Jay felt like that was a beautiful time in all of our lives and I choose to leave it there, like I've moved around so much, but every once in a while, like I'll find myself in the same town, like whether it's Somerville, New Jersey, Washington, New Jersey, Long Valley, whatever. And I'm like, man, you can't go back. And somebody's
Mm.
gonna, that's me personally,
No, I get it. I get it.
and I've got this beautiful memory of where I grew up and my family and all that. And I choose to keep it there. And if that's what Jay is doing, just then yeah, just let it stay there. Cool. But whatever his reasons are, like everyone else, I absolutely respect it. But I do hope if he hears anything that he just knows he had a very positive impact. Like we've talked about several times today, you will never, never know what good a Lane Meyer song or a a drawing, or just being a nice person at a show and just making it a better experience for everybody. Like, that's major. And look how we carry it into our lives. Jay had a drop in the bucket on that. And thank you for the ripple.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put that, dude. Um, all right, man. Well, I am gonna wrap this up. Even though I could probably talk to you for fucking ever. I'm
Dude, me
so
too.
glad you
Thank
come
you
to this.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
dude. I'm glad. I'm glad. Like you're one of those interviews too that it's like when I reached to Chuck from Weston. He's like, I don't know, man. I don't think I would say. And then all of a sudden he was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. It was like, oh fuck yeah. Same thing with you, man. You were just like, I don't know, maybe, I guess. And then I was like, all right, well, it's like kind of like Jay. There's these interviews where I don't ever give up. Like with Jay, I still hit him up on Instagram, like, so we gonna do this, we gonna do this, and he's just like, he won't even answer me back. I'm like, that's fine, um, because it's like, why not try? But no, I'm glad you say yeah. So, all right, dudes, two questions before we wrap it up. One, what would you like to plug? It could be about you, or it could be about somebody else, or both.
I just have nothing right now. But if there's something, if there's, I'll say this much. I remember when I was on tour one time, I don't know if it was LimeWire or everybody, just, the generation of just like, why would I support anything I like? And I think we're still there, that we find different reasons to say why. But I remember somebody bought two CDs uh, of our friends at the bar and gave us, like, it was almost like a $40 tip or something. And they said, no, thank you. That was awesome. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get to crash in a motel tonight. And this person appreciated us so much that he supported us like that. He has no idea, after this long slog, that we don't have to like sleep in the van or go camping again in some sketchy park. And I just remember coming back from that tour and just saying, I'm always going to try to support, to like what I like, to try to support it. And that doesn't always mean like money. I would just ask anybody listening to plug something that's not yours, I guess. I just don't have anything specific, but I remember how much that meant to me. Just playing a show meant something to somebody else, and that we got to sleep in a bed that night.
Okay. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Oh my gosh. I think we've covered it. I feel like what we talked about up the punks and kindness and love, and it sounds really corny, but I really think we've sort of talked about just kind of making that positive impact. I think the only thing we haven't talked about, I feel like how I work, my process, I joking about, is kind of punk. Like, I may never have the talent to write that book you want to read, but we're compelled. I think what I'm trying to say is my style that I developed over time, and my process was, short, fast, harsh, and full of urgency and anger and joy. And I felt that was kind of like punk, and I would stop what I would do. But I think everything we sort of talked about, the scene had good values, and I didn't really recognize it at the time, but I'm very fortunate that the people in the scene were very good people that just wanted to get to know you because you just shared common interests, And I don't know if that was everyone's experience, but that's the kind of ethics I just try to, support and include, and remember that it's really hard to be nice, but to try.